There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. We can roll the image, make it flutter. We can change the focus to a soft blur, or sharply to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to...
Good evening, all, and welcome to MUFC Realist TV. I'm your host, Jarvis Cocker. This is Jarvis's Corner every Monday night, 9 p.m. With me tonight, I have, as always, my brilliant co-host, Stu Woolley. Tonight, we have a special guest, or two special guests. We have Dave O'Donnell from the blog United in Focus, and Phil Mars, ex-Man United player. So I'm not going to be rude, Stu, and ignore you, but first of all, I will bring in Dale and let him introduce himself for the viewers.
Oh, can't believe it.
Thanks, Jarvis. Sorry, Stu. Yeah, I write for United in Focus, just as of recently. I've been writing about United for over 13 years. That's just a brief introduction, as all.
Okay, so you have been following United closely probably all your life then.
Yes, of course I have been, and thanks as well for having me on tonight.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And with us is ex-Man United player Phil Mars with his beautiful Christmas tree in the background. How are you doing, Phil? It's been a long time.
Yeah, as I've not been on for quite a while, but good to be back on. And everything's good from my end, mate. Thought I'd be in the Christmas spirit today. The tree's gone up, so hopefully, that'll put a smile on our face, even though the football at the moment might not be.
Wow.
Yes.
I think we see improvements with Amorim. I like what we see. At least we score goals. We didn't do that under Ten Hag, so we are slightly improving, even though the points is not there. But I'm quite okay with the current situation, and I usually go a lot of times live with Nuruddin on United Real Therapy, and we talk a lot about this. Do we want to see a structure? Do we want to see a style, or do we want points? And I'm in that camp that actually wants to see a style of play, and I understand it will take a little bit of time. I'm willing to sacrifice this season and just let it go its way, and for us to establish a pattern and something recognizable. What's your thoughts, Phil?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, to be fair, that was just a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment. I think, as you say, the results at the moment are probably going to be up and down, because I think the manager's obviously going to be chopping and changing, having a look at players in certain positions, trying different sort of formations, and just trying to sort of iron out who he thinks probably is capable of staying, and who he probably wants to move on. So I do think results will sort of be up and down this year until he gets his sort of teeth right into it, and he can sort of make his stamp on the team. I think obviously he'll need a few transfer windows as well to bring in the right personnel for the way he wants to set up. So yeah, I think, as I say, I'm sort of quietly confident that we will get there eventually, and it obviously is going to be a slow process. But yeah, some promising signs, I think, in the last couple of weeks with sort of the way we're setting up and the way that we're playing. And as you say, we're scoring more goals. We look more of a threat going forward. Like Diallo, Ahmad, I think has really done well. And sort of, seems as though he's sort of really flourishing in that sort of position that he's found himself in. So yeah, quite a few promising signs, and hopefully there's more to come.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you sum it up well. Let me introduce this guy, Mr. Stu Woolley. Sorry for the wait. You can start the yappity yap and start going. I'll time you 10 minutes now.
I'll tell you what, Phil, this is what I'm going to put up with on a regular basis, mate. Same with you, Del. If you come back on, this is the type of amateur hour you get from the host on occasions, you know. But, you know, it's one of those. Yeah, great to be back. Great to have Phil on. Great to be working with you as well, Dale. You're very welcome to come onto the channel at any time, certainly Jarvis's Corner. Phil, the VAR room been crying out for you again to come back on. So full of legendary stories. We do have quite a poignant note we do want to touch on first, subject-wise. But before we do, I think Mr. Amorim wants to get himself down and watch the mighty Tipton Town, because I think he can learn a lot from us guys, strutting our stuff on a weekend. It was our weekend off this week because, Phil, as you may or may not know, at our age, we have to have a week's break in between to let the old bones heal up. We're not playing particularly well at the minute, the mighty Tipton Town, but, you know, we're still at it. And we should be gracing the turf of Worcester this weekend. So hopefully for a win on Thursday night with the lads and 2 wins over the weekend for the mighty Tipton Town. And, of course, have we got the derby this weekend? Am I right in saying it's a derby? We have, haven't we? Yeah. So we've got a big week. But I wanted to touch on something that I've always spoken about a lot, especially with Jarvis, really. You know, supporting football club just isn't about supporting the players, the squad, the manager. There's a whole mechanism that goes into running Manchester United. And we've had some people that have been with the club for years, decades, and they kind of go under the radar, except the legend that was Kath. And we were sad to hear and read this week that Kath passed away, or sorry, last week that Kath passed away. And, you know, for me, who supported the club, crikey, how old am I now? I think about 48 years, pretty much, I've been supporting the club. She's been there over 50. Am I right in saying that, Phil? Was she there about 50 years, something along those lines? And
over 50 years. I think.
You know, she has seen some of the greatest footballers come and go at Manchester United. You know, she's shook hands, shared laughs, shed tears. You know, probably chucked snowballs at some of the best footballers the world has seen, and of course, Mr. Marsh himself. I'm sure she's left a hugely lasting impression on yourself. But I just thought it was pointed that we touched on Kath in particular, but also speak about what really goes into Manchester United outside of what we see on a Saturday afternoon, Tuesday evening, Wednesday evening, or Thursdays it's been lately. So, Phil, I do want to come to you. Sorry, Dale, I will come to you on this, pal. But Phil, in particular, can you just recite the first time you met Kath and when you walked through the club? I would imagine she was at the Cliff at that time or in and around there, and what it was like, what she was like, certainly to the younger players, and how you remember her growing up, and how you remember her. Probably you saw her, maybe a month or two ago, I'm guessing, when you were last at the club. So
So I did see her probably about, I'd say, 6 months ago when I went into Carrington. So I took some of the kids from the school I work in, and I seen her obviously just before she probably went off, a couple of months after she went off, and she wasn't feeling too well. So luckily for me, I got one last chance to sort of, you know, have a little chat with her, as I always would do anyway during the time at the club, or every time I went to Carrington. She was one of them kind of people who you just, you know, gravitated towards, was always really, you know, boisterous and friendly, happy, and just such a great person. So I was lucky enough, and, you know, I'm really happy that I did get a chance to see her, obviously, before, sadly, you know, she has passed away. Just going back to sort of the first time I ever met her, I think, to be fair, the first time I crossed paths with Kath was, so when I was probably around about 14, 15, that was when I was obviously still in the academy, but I used to, luckily, I used to get taxis that would pick me up. when I was still in school, when I was like in the end of year 10 and just going into year 11. And I used to go in and train with the first year YTs because I was obviously, they probably thought that I was physically ready. And obviously I was doing really well in my own age group. So I was lucky enough to, push up and go into the older age group and train with some of the first year YTs and full-time lads. So I used to get a taxi that picked me up on a Monday, and I'd go into Carrington, and Kath would always greet me with a smile, at the reception, always give you a hug, always really, really happy, and would sort of initiate a conversation with you regardless of anything else that was going on. And I think that kind of thing might only seem like quite a small and sort of, something that, doesn't really sort of, get talked enough about. But I think over the years, obviously then I went into full-time, you seen her every single day. And every single day, no matter what, she would always greet you with a smile. She would always help you out if there was any concerns with anything. She would always sort your wages out and give you a hug. And I think the best thing about that is that, as footballers, sometimes you might be going into the training ground with personal problems. You might have, the hump because you're not in the team. You might be upset with the manager. You might be, but Kath would always lift you up and make you feel, like $1 million. And I think, as you touched on there, Stu, that these kind of people don't really get the accolades and probably don't get spoken about in the way that, other people do. But as players and as, people who were in a presence at the time, that kind of, thing that she would give you was always sort of comforting and really had a massive effect on, everybody really, because everyone speaks so highly of her because that was the kind of person that she was. And she just made you feel, always happy to be at the training ground, and I say she couldn't do enough for you, and obviously what a servant she's been at the club. She's done, absolutely incredible work that people probably don't know half about because it's obviously going on behind the scenes. But to be at a club for 50 years and to give, the amount of dedication, time, and obviously to touch so many people and players, especially as she did, is unbelievable, really. So, I'm sure that she'll get a really good send-off, and obviously my thoughts are with all of the family at this sad time. But she is somebody that and I'm sure that there's clubs up and down the country that have other people that work at the clubs have similar impacts, and obviously, as I say, they probably don't get spoken about. But I think Kath was such a special lady that everybody sort of knew, and she could never do enough for you. And as I say, she's definitely left a imprint on everybody that has sort of came through the club in the time she's been there.
Yeah, she's that popular. There was a nice, a lovely little Twitter page made up, Kath at reception. I think the author closed that down or made that dormant because of what happened. And to me, everybody, I used to look through Twitter and I used to look out for what she had to say for that kind of day, so to speak, through the author's eyes. And as a player, I would imagine for you to see somebody like Kath, to have a hug off somebody like Kath, because I wondered if she was a hugger. I would imagine she was a hugger. I'd imagine she got a lovely personality. I can imagine.
She did without fail, and not just one or two. Every single person that walked through the front door, and it was come and greet you with a hug, smile, how are you, good morning, whatever it is. And as I say, that kind of thing, might only seem quite small, but for some people who's maybe got things going on and they're not in a great place, or they're a bit upset about the way that they are in terms of whether if they're not playing in the first team or they're not in a good place mentally, that would make a massive difference, and obviously start you off start of the day on the right foot, and would always sort of make regardless of what was going on, you'd walk through them doors and you'd think, do you know what, at least I've got somebody there who regardless of what she's got going on, she would always make you feel great, give you that sort of exuberant start to the day.
Did you notice a difference to her when you last saw her? Was she still okay? Was she?
Yeah, no, I mean, to be fair, I did notice a bit of a difference. She did look a little bit more frail, and she did look a little bit more You know, she obviously didn't have the same enthusiasm as probably she once did when I met her sort of for the first time, and obviously that's understandable with her age and obviously the illnesses that she's probably had over the years. But regardless of that, when I did see her, she still came and gave me a hug. She was asking how I'd been, how the kids were, and we had a nice little picture, in fact. And she actually got a trophy out because she wanted to show me the trophy that she got given not so long ago, and we had a nice little photo and a nice moment where we sort of caught up for 5-10 minutes, and it was great, to be fair. So as I say, I'm really glad that happened, because obviously I wouldn't have seen her probably again, because obviously, you know, it's been such a shock really to hear that news. And I did obviously know that she'd been taken a bit unwell, but obviously to hear the news that she passed away was obviously devastating, because, you know, she means so much to everyone at Manchester United, and everyone who's sort of been through the club or, you know, touched or crossed paths with Kath will definitely be, you know, devastated to hear that news, because she was such an amazing person.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your recollection, Phil. Our thoughts obviously go out to Kath and her family, everybody at Manchester United, and of course yourself, Phil. You know, you were close to her, so our thoughts are with you as well. Dale, do you want to mention anything about Kath? Did you have any experiences with Kath, or?
Unfortunately, no experiences, but I think you kind of nailed it really when you spoke about how, you know, a receptionist at this football club is loved by so many people. But there is, of course, other people at different clubs that go that extra yard, whatever the field is, to make that impact. And you could just see from the reactions since last weekend, I can't think of any player that didn't share a little note about Kath. And that showed you how much work she did and how much she was appreciated and loved at the club. Like obviously, it's sad news, and thoughts goes out to everyone that knew her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jarvis, you got anything to say, and then I'll hand the reins back to you.
Yeah, I am. You know, I'm obviously I'm Norwegian, and you know I have just been in Manchester a couple of times, so I heard about Kath, and I understand what type of person she was, and you know, being the human element of a huge club with the big stars and multi-millionaires and all that comes with that aspect of the game. She was the human element, as you said, Phil. Always met you with a smile and a hug, and being working. Was it in the reception on Old Trafford? Yeah, and being that type of person, and you know, it's some continuance being there over the years, over all the periods, seeing all those players coming in as fresh young guys and going out and probably sold or retired at some stage, and even managers come and go, but she's been one of the constants, always being there at the club. So it will be a huge loss for the club, and she will be missed, but it's sad, yeah. I'm sorry that we lost Kath, because she was a great human being, and we must cherish people like her, and I think now we see ticket price rises, and £66.6 for a ticket, and local people are feeling that Manchester United are moving away from them. We are becoming a I don't know, too commercial of a club, and it's all about the money. It's not about the passion and the soul of the club. And Kath was a huge representative of the soul of the club.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I'm hoping. I'm sure the club will honour in some way, but I hope that they make the reception area a shrine to her. You know, maybe rename it in her honour, or do something so that when you walk through Carrington reception, you know, you're aware.
I'm sure they will do it. I mean, I don't know for definite, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, she's done enough to sort of, you know, get something in the reception area, because every time you walk through that reception area, obviously people who's been there will automatically think of Kath. So I'm hoping that they do definitely make something.
Big shoes to fill. Very big shoes.
You know, she didn't have an easy job as well, because she used to deal with all the wages. So as you can imagine, the wages around, and obviously she stitched me up that time, giving me Roy Keane's wage slip. So
yeah, which I thought was hilarious.
I'll always remember her for that. So
yeah.
Maybe Phil, you can have give the new viewers a recap of that story, because it's a great story.
Brilliant story.
If you have the time, if you don't mind.
What did Roy Keane say when he got yours?
Yeah, to be honest, it was a funny day, because I think obviously the sort of score used to be like, as you left at the end of a month, Kath would have all the wage slips in reception. So she used to have a massive, bag with all the wage slips in, and she used to sort of fan through all these wage slips 100 mile an hour, because players are coming out and going and flying through reception. And this one particular day, she's just quickly gone through and give me what I thought was my wage slip. So I've obviously gone on my way and gone back to my car and started to open this wage slip, unbeknown that obviously she'd give me Roy Keane's wage slip. So as soon as I ripped the strip and sort of seeing the sort of layout of the pay structure and sort of seeing the net pay, I sort of laughed, because I was like, this is definitely not my wage slip. So obviously, walk back in sort of, and as you know, Carrington's got full glass doors. So as we walk down to the sort of reception area, I can see Kath sort of flapping, and Keno stood in reception, like waiting for his wage slip, and obviously I've got it in my hand. So I'm walking back down and thinking, oh my God, like this is gonna go down well. I've just opened Roy Keane's wage slip, seeing how much he's on, seeing all his bonuses. And now he's probably fuming, waiting for his wage slip because he wants to get off. So as I've walked in, Kath sort of looked at me a little bit startled and sort of been like, "Oh, you all right, Phil?" As though obviously she thought I'd gone. And I just sort of said, "Oh, Kath, I think you've given me the wrong wage slip." And as soon as obviously I said that, I seen Keane look at me as if to say, "You've got my wage slip." So Kath's obviously gone back through the wages, and she's found mine and said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, Phil. I've given you the wrong wage slip." So I've obviously give it in, but it's obviously ripped in half because I've the wage slip. So Keane sort of took the ripped up wage slip, and I'm sort of waiting for mine off Kath, and he's not left. He's just hanging around. So I'm like, "Oh no, this isn't going to go well." So I got my wage slip. He just put his arm around me and squoze me, and we were just walking out the doors together. And he just sort of like whispered to me and was like, "Go on, did you have a look then?" And I sort of said, "Yeah, I did. I knew it wasn't my wage slip though, so I came straight back in." But obviously, you can imagine I was like sweating and obviously didn't know what it was going to go like. And he just sort of started laughing and sort of said to me, "Well," he said, the money's great. He said, "But I just love winning and sort of winning trophies." And I was like, "Oh," I said, yeah. I said, "I agree. Obviously, I'm on like probably a fraction of what he gets probably, and he was just laughing, saying, "Don't worry," he said, "you'll be on that kind of money one day if you keep working hard and all this, that, and the other." And then he let me go, and I just like literally walked back to my car and just sat in the car for about 20 minutes, like thinking, what the hell is there? Like that literally could have gone one or two ways. And obviously, I think because obviously I'd had the car crash the year before, and obviously he came and visited me in the hospital, and maybe had a little bit of a soft spot for me. He knew I was a good lad and sort of had my head screwed on and worked hard and didn't really step out of line. I think maybe if it had been a different player who was maybe a little bit more flash and, probably drove a flash car and probably didn't have the sort of work rate and dedication that I show, and it might have been a bit different because he used to, hammer a few of the younger players when they stepped out of line or if he was getting a little bit above the station. So that was always a good, funny story that I'll take away from me. And obviously, Kath was a big part of that.
Pivotal to that, wasn't she?
Yeah. Thank her for that. Obviously,
Just imagine if you're in Memphis to pay at that time, or to play at that time, and his Rolls Royce, he'd have absolutely ripped him to shreds.
Oh, yeah. And as I said, Keane was one of them. Obviously, absolutely brilliant in terms of, someone to learn from, to having be on his team, and sort of, you know, the way he sort of went about his business was amazing. But obviously, on the flip side of that, if you wasn't pulling your weight and you was, you know, doing the things that you shouldn't be doing, or you stepped out of line, he was really sort of somebody who would let you know and sort of come down on you like a ton of bricks, because the standards were so high. And I think that's obviously now, when you look at the current team and the current sort of way that the game's gone, you know, that kind of thing were sort of lacking massively, because you need somebody who can have that discipline and set the standard. And obviously every day in training, you've got to have that drive and want to be the best every single day in training, let alone on a weekend. And as I say, I think, you know, that's unfortunately what we are lacking a little bit now in terms of, you know, with the current crop of players that we've got.
Yeah.
Oh God! My lad's just sent me a video. He's watching. Jake and Emma, hi. If you're still watching, well, they're probably switched off now, because I don't know why. He's just sent me a video. Good to see your son anyway. Sorry about that, Phil.
Right.
What a great story. But you are right. Actually, it's some. I really want to touch on his attitude. You know, player attitude. I got absolutely. I got into a real back and forth a couple of weeks ago about player attitude, and you know, Dale, Phil, and Jarvis know my thoughts on player attitude. If it's not right for me, I absolutely I hate it. It's the worst ever thing. And you're right. It's just, we just haven't got that, have we? You tell me a leader, a real true leader in that dressing room that would square up to the likes of Roy Keane, Stevie Bruce, Schmeichel, Ince. You know, there just doesn't. There's just nobody there, is there, that's got that appetite, that desire, and that will, and that want to win. And I think Amarin's got a tough thing.
I think as well, Stu, just quickly on that, like in terms of like when I'm saying a leader, I don't necessarily mean in terms of like on a Saturday going around smashing people, trying to, you know, throw the weight around. I think what I mean by what Keane was, and not only Keane, there was loads of players at that time in the dressing room. I think it's just about setting the standards and, you know, making sure everyone's at it in training, making sure that, you know, if people aren't pulling the weight, that they get told, and obviously, you know, in the right way. Any things that sort of go on always gets dealt with in house. The players used to sort of deal with a lot of things, and it never used to get leaked to the media, which is nowadays, you know, everything's on Twitter, and every time there's something going on, it's, you know, massive distractions for the club and for the manager, which we've seen over the last couple of years, especially. I think all that kind of thing was amazing. Like when I was there was no player that was sort of, you know, better than anybody else. Everyone was sort of an equal, and that came from the manager. Obviously, as I say, people like Kath and, you know, the cleaners, and everybody was treated with the same respect. Everyone was a family. Nobody was better than anybody else. And I think everybody knew that the standards of the club was so high that you just sort of came into training and it was sort of autopilot. Whereas nowadays, I think we've sort of lost that. Obviously, the culture of the club has sort of slowly faded from them times. And as I say, hopefully we can, you know, start to claw that back a little bit in the next
quick question on that then, Phil. When do you think, sorry, and then we'll bring Jarvis, we'll move on. Where do you think player power evolved from? Where do you, you know, from your eyes, being in that dressing room, where have you seen all this eruption of pathetic, wimpish footballers? Where have they suddenly arrived from?
I think, Stu, it's just, I think it's just sort of over time. Obviously, as the game's gone bigger and the more commercial of sort of side of things it's gone, the money's just gone through the roof. So obviously, players now are getting like 5-year contracts. They're getting like ridiculous signing on fees. Their agents are having more say in you know what goes on. And I think, you know, when you look at some of the stuff that's been going on, not necessarily in the Premier League, but when you look at the situation with Mbappe a couple of years ago, when he was sort of in PSG and he was getting a contract that enabled him to sort of say who he could sign and whether he was starting. So, you know, you look at that and that just screams, you know, so many like things that are just wrong, because, you know, if a player is on an equal with everybody else, but yet he's got the ability to sort of, you know, have a say in transfers and have a say on who's starting in a team, then, you know, that's just completely wrong. But yeah, I just think the money in the game now enables the players to have so much more power, and because they're on sort of massive contracts as well in terms of duration of contract, they're not worried about, you know, if things don't go well, but they can just sit on the contract for 3-4 years, and the club have got a massive problem on their hands because they can't get rid of him. You know, whereas, you know, back in the day, I think obviously the contracts were nowhere near as long. The players were still on great money, but I think the hunger for actual success was more. Whereas now, I think because there's so many distractions as well outside of football, like a lot of players now, you see them with like multiple different businesses. You see them, you know, doing, you know, clothing brands or music. And I think, you know, the football, in some cases for me looks like it's secondary, and you know, to other things that's going on in life, which you can see in terms of like the way the performances have gone with certain players, that other things seem to be taking priority, which is, you know, just wrong. I think I look back at obviously someone like David Beckham, you know, regardless of all the other things that he had going on outside of football, it never affected his performances on the weekend. He would always turn up with 100%, be one of the best players on the pitch, and obviously, you know, all the other things was you know, what he wanted to do, but it never really affected the way he played as a player because he was so professional. Whereas nowadays, I think the mentality of the players has just shifted, and it's difficult to get that back, obviously, now because there's so much distraction.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I will move on to Dale with, and you can elaborate on that. But I just want to bring in. We have a new membership gift from Roshmano coming in. So
hold on.
No, I will just.
You can't do new members without doing the shades. Where is it? Where's the little whistle? Come on, let's hear it. Oh God, it's got worse.
I don't know what's wrong with it. It's not working.
Thank you, a personal apology from myself for Jarvis's useless whistle. Come on, Jarvis.
Oh my God!
Yes, and we have 20 memberships from Roshmano coming in. New members are Space Time Continuum. Nice name. Nepal 420 Death. Ooh. Did I have a tribute to the band Napalm Death? Maybe
Napalm Death potentially. Yeah.
That's the kind of music you listen to all the time while you're in your car driving to work.
Well. I don't like Napalm Death, but I am a bit of a Megadeth, Metallica, Anthrax. I used to love Pantera. The original Pantera line, absolutely tremendous. I've seen most of those bands when I was a tiddler coming through. Yeah, White Snake, my particular favourite. I love White Snake, but I like modern day stuff. Bring Me the Horizon. I've kind of changed from a little bit of death metal to pop, back to a little bit of grunge, that type of thing. So they've changed. So I do like it. Love White Christmas by Big Bing. You know, so we'll be getting the Christmas tunes on shortly. Last Christmas, and of course E17. Who could forget fabled number one of band. Stay Another Day. I mean, crikey.
Let's just
let's move on now. Yeah,
You're just waffling. Want to play Fairmont SB Sharon Lancaster, MUFC 14 Mariah McConnelly, NK Man United Planet Dirk with a Man City badge. Dirk, we are coming for you this weekend. Roddy Johnson, big up Roddy. Greeks United, Gaming Simp, Marty MUFC J, Mitesh L, Chow View, Rob Taff, Irfan Deveron, I don't know how to pronounce French, and last but not least, Michael Sakuraya. Welcome to the MUFC members team, and thank you, Roshmano, for the gifted memberships. Let's just hold that topic we were talking about. I will go to Dale. So, Dale, you have been analyzing and watching Man United closely. Why, how, and where do you think Man United lost their I don't know, aim or their view on what's important, because it looks like a lot of these players have lost focus.
I think Phil raised a number of interesting points about the money that's in the game now, but I also think one of the biggest issues of Manchester United has been over the last 18 years. Standards have been let drop as a result of the way the Glazers have run the club. If you look at the way contracts work, they're not exactly incentivized. These people come to the club and earn a stupid amount of money straight away without doing anything. One of those was Jadon Sancho, and we all see how that worked out. Yeah, what these players need to realize is when you get to Manchester United, your hard work doesn't stop there. That's only the start of it. You've done nothing when you just arrive at the football club. You do well to get there, then you got to do the hard work, show why you're there. And I think that's something that has gone amiss in recent years, especially under the Glazers. People think they can come in, get their big wages, collect them every week, even when they're not fit, even when they're not playing every week. I think that's what stinks. I think that's some of the problems that INEOS are trying to deal with now. They've come in, place a mess. We're practically skint in certain ways, and it's not a quick fix. Raising standards is going to take a lot of time. There are certain players in the dressing room that are still there that need shown the door, but it's not going to happen in one transfer window or two. I think Eric Ten Hag tried to get most of the bad eggs out of the dressing room, and he was successful in part of that. But some people might suggest that he added one or two.
Yeah, it's interesting, but when you think of it, you talk about the Glazers era, but it's not only the Glazers. The commerce of football has become it's mad, and it's not only the Glazers that have pushed through the high wage bills and the huge transfer sums. We have had the Qataris coming in, Saudis coming in. We have had the Abramovich coming in, all injecting a lot of big money into the league and the TV deals. So it's bound to be about the money. But Stu, how do you feel? Do you think the place has lost focus? Is it the main goal just to arrive at Old Trafford, not winning?
I'm fed up with the players, and I've been fed up with the players for a long, long time. And I've had this debate and this argument with so many people. It's a lack of coaching. It's the manager. It's this and it's that. And Phil will categorically tell you, I promise you now, Phil will go in on a Monday, he'll have his debrief, he'll watch the game, blah, 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 blah. And then, we've got City coming up on Sunday. And then over the next couple of days, they're going to go through various videos, various scenarios on the training pitch as to what they think City will do. And Phil knows this. He walks onto the pitch, blah, 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 tracks it off. He's ready. He's raring to go. And he will stroll. I promise you now, Phil will just stroll into the position he was told to stay in. And then the game changes, completely goes. Phil's looking around thinking, well, hold on, City aren't supposed to do that. So he's got two choices. He stands around and does what the gaffer tells him to do, or he improvises and he innovates and gets it into the game, because everyone knows that football evolves. Right from the kickoff, it evolves completely, and by 10 minutes in, everything that Phil was told during the week has probably gone completely out the window. And you've got to play football on the fly a lot of the time, don't you, Phil? You've got to understand that not everything you're taught is, or the gaffer wants you to do, is available to you. That option might just not be available to you, so you've got to make the best of it. And then our players don't seem to have this, any industry, they don't seem to have the brain capacity, the brain power to kind of evaluate what happens and try and do something about it. And a great example would be against Arsenal. Zonal marking for us doesn't work. I feel I never saw you when you were playing zonal mark at all back in the day. Zonal marking doesn't work. And when you look at where we were for those first two goals as to the position of the Arsenal players, it only takes two players to go up and put a block on their block of five players and just block them, stop them coming in, just do something. But here's what annoys me the most, and I'm fascinated why supporters blame coaches and managers, But as a footballer, and Phil and Dale, I'm sure you play, and Jarvis, you know, if you are a 28-year-old Manchester United footballer, okay, an elite football club and the best league in the world, and you need to be told where to stand in a fucking corner, you need go and do something else, mate. Just honestly, go and shovel ice, and stick it down a volcano, because you don't deserve to be anywhere near a football pitch. Now, look, I get it. You're told to do things, you're instructed to do things. And Phil will tell you this: you'd never go against Fergie, but he wouldn't bite your lunch or eat your lunch, would he, Phil? If you improvised and made a play that benefited the team, he might want to know why you did it, but he wouldn't bite your lunch. Our players look absolutely petrified to do something different. You have to go rogue in football. I don't care what anyone says. I just don't buy that at all. You have to go rogue in a game. You know, you've got to be able to do something different. You've got to twist your opponent so fucking tight that they can't get out, not the other way around. We were being suffocated by Arsenal for 90 minutes. We were suffocated by Forest for 90 minutes. Everybody turns around and says, oh, you shouldn't be getting beat to Forest. You shouldn't lose to... Why not? Why can't you lose to Forest? You know, if they're running 10 yards faster than you, they're running 2 miles more than you, they're willing to put a tackle in harder than you, they're willing to, do what it takes to win a game of football. Why shouldn't you lose to Forest? So that's what frustrates me, with football. Phil plays Northwest Counties now. I play Worcester Prem, for over 55s. But we still do, the same thing. We still go out there and we still try our very, very, very best to win. You do, as long as you win your personal battles, you get your tackles in early, you get your strike off early, you get your passing right. I mean, fucking hell, lads. We can't even pass 5 yards on occasions. 5 yards? We can't even get right. Whose fault's that? If you can't pass the ball 5 yards, whose fault is that? It's your right foot or your left foot. It ain't Dale's foot, or anything like that. It's your foot. If you can't do it, it's your own fault. It's got F all to do with coaching.
Yeah.
A lot of coaching, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong here, is motivation, isn't it? It's communication, talking, and motivation.
Yeah. I think just touching on that, I obviously think back to the time when I was at the club, and you look at them partnerships and relationships that you build up, and there was nothing magical about the way Fergie used to set his teams up. It was 4-4-2, and players would naturally just play on sort of instinct a lot of the time, because what would happen is you look at the midfield partnership that was Roy Keane and Paul Scholes. As soon as one of them players went forward, the other one would automatically know to sit in, because you don't have two players bombing on and leaving massive gaps in the midfield. That's just common sense. And I think nowadays, because of the way managers set teams up, and they probably have a lot more data analysts and sports science, players probably feel more, shoehorned into playing in a certain area and not leaving that particular space because that's what they're being told. Whereas, back in the day, as I say, players had that license and freedom to do whatever they wanted. You wouldn't go, running across. You see Bruno Fernandes. 1 minute he's playing on the right wing, then he's at left back, then he's in the box, then he's back in the. So that kind of thing for me is a load of nonsense, because there's no structure to the play, and you're leaving massive gaps, and you're sort of leaving people outnumbered, and you're not sort of playing in a way that will benefit the team. Although I like his industry and he wants to help the team and he wants to get on the ball, that's fine. But I think there's a lot of times where he's getting on the ball in positions where he doesn't need to do that. He needs to be in a position where he can hurt the defenders by playing the balls in behind like he can do in the right areas. And I just think because we've got no real sort of structure, and there's not really been the time, and sort of because of a lot of injuries as well, you've got to say that we've not been able to build up relationships with people and players, because it's been chopping and changing for so long. And as I say, I think back to that team and everything was just done on instinct. Players would just play with the freedom you know, if someone went forward, I'll sit in, and vice versa. If I went forward, I know that they'd sit in for me, and I'm always there as an option to play and bounce off. And I think you've got to be brave. I don't see a lot of players now who want to get on the ball in tight situations, whereas, you know, when I used to go and train with the first team, or what, that was a massive part of it. You've got to want the ball when there's players up and tight around you, because that's what creates the space. You play in, pop it out, and then you're away, and that sucks the players in, and then the pass goes through, and it's breaking them lines, playing through the thirds, speed, and with, you know, quality. And unfortunately, we don't have the sort of players all over the pitch really that are at the level that it needs to be at the moment, and it's obviously frustrating, because obviously the football that United fans are used to watching, you know, it's, you know, light years really away from that at the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So,
Dale,
I just want to say, I see Dale is he needs to go
needs
in
to
10
go,
minutes time. So I just want to bring him in, and so he can have his say before he leaves, because we'll come back to the game and talk a little bit more about the footballing side, and the game against who was we played against? Forest, yeah. I just want to ask Dale, because obviously you have a lot of insight, or at least knowledge about the club, and you follow the club closely. And the last couple of days, or yesterday, the big news broke that the Dan Ashworth is out of the club, and maybe you can have your say about that, and we can talk a little bit about that situation, because now we heard a lot of rumors. I heard that he was escorted out right after the game, and obviously something must have happened. So how do you see this from your perspective?
Well, clearly they made a mistake, because they've hired a man that they worked very hard, bent over backwards to get at Newcastle. There was reports of big sums for compensation packages and whatnot. So they thought they wanted him, and 5 months in, they decided they don't. I thought when it was announced that he was coming to the club, there was a lot of hype, and I didn't think all that hype was justified. People talk about what he brought to Leicester City, what he brought to England, but you can look at both of those and pick holes at it. I remember a story about how he told Gary Neville how he saw him one day become an England manager and whatnot. So I reckon at Leicester, Dan Ashworth was clever and surrounded himself with the right people, but I don't think he was the only person that should have been thanked for that work. So I'm not really sickened that he's not at United anymore. I didn't really think he should have got the job. I was fearful that they were hiring too many people. You got Omar Brada in, you got Ashworth in 1 minute, you got Wilcox, you got another guy in, Christopher on an interim basis. It just seems that they were hiring all these so-called experts, but any expert in that kind of field isn't going to want to be told what to do. You know, you got Lewis Campos working at a club, Paul Mitchell working at a club. These guys run the football club. And there's always a feeling for me when we had so many is, who do we as fans hold responsible? Who's the one that picked the manager? Who's the one that decided Eric Ten Hag should have been sacked? And I think now it's going to be interesting to see if they do look for a replacement, or if it'll be someone like Barada that actually steers the ship. But I'm not too down about the fact that Ashworth is gone. I think that there was a lot of hype surrounding him, and like I said, I don't think it was completely justified.
But he has an excellent track record from his former clubs, and you know, they hired him, and it's very strange that just sacked him after 5 months. So let's just speculate what could have happened for him to lose his job so quickly.
Yeah, some people are suggesting that it could have been down to Ashworth wanting and Gareth Southgate. I don't think that alone would be strong enough to hunt him out of the club, because I've been told that there's other executives at the club that wanted Southgate. One of them being Dave Brailsford. And I don't see him, unfortunately, I don't see him be given his marching orders. So I think something else must have went down with Ashworth, whether it was a falling out, whether they realized that they couldn't work together. But I definitely think there's more to it. I don't think there's one sole reason. It's like maybe they bought a size shoe that just didn't fit, and they need to return it.
Yeah. Bill, how do you read the current situation? Do you think it's a power struggle inside Man United with all these powerful executives and chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I agree with Dale in terms of sort of, a lot of high-profile people coming in at the same time. I think it was always going to be a bit of a recipe for disaster. You always want, you sort of, if you're sort of specialist in your field, you always probably feel like you want to have more of a say and more of an involvement. That's probably what you got. You're going to get. I think that looks to be the reason for Ashworth, from what I can gather, that he probably wasn't getting enough of a say in certain things. And obviously Southgate was probably one of them in terms of who he wanted to come into the club. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I think hopefully with all these names that we've sort of got in the background doing all the stuff that we definitely need to get this next 6 to 12 months right. We've got a new manager now who hopefully will get given time, get back in and will hopefully give us on the field sort of a lot more structure and a style of play. But I just think all this other stuff in the background needs to be sort of ironed out, and obviously it doesn't look good on the club with this 5 months in and someone's leaving. It just brings unnecessary attention to the club, you know what I mean? And after everything that we've been doing over the last sort of 12 years, 15 years with the Glazers, I think now we need to start being a little bit more classy and savvy about our business, because it's not a good look with having people coming and going as frequently as it is. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can get the on the pitch stuff right in the next couple of seasons with Amorim and hopefully move forward. I think all this other stuff, it needs to be just be dealt with and not making any more unnecessary distractions, really.
Yeah, 100%. But before we go to Stu and for Stu to have his say, Dale, do you think Sir Jim Ratcliffe had a part of this? And is it worrying if he had a part in this, that the owner can come in and sack people, or was it the CEO Omar Barada who made the cut? How do you see it?
There's two ways of looking at it. You can look at it in the sense that they made a mistake, such a big mistake early on, and it looks bad on them. However, I'd look at it more on the stance that yes, they made a mistake and they've been quick to amend it, because Manchester United, under previous ownership with the Glazers, and when they had full control, would have given that contract, would have maybe realized it was wrong, but they would have persisted until that contract ended. Whereas I think what United have shown is once they concede they made a wrong decision, they're willing to realize that and make a change. But I think what Phil just mentioned there, we want to see the club show some class. In terms of Ratcliffe, I think we've seen quite the opposite since they come in. You go back to the redundancies, and they're on about ways of saving money for the football club, but there's other ways they can do that. And those other ways do not include charging fans more for tickets, ridiculous price increases midway through a season that we didn't see coming, and fans weren't consulted. That lacked class. What also lacked class is his response to that in an interview with United We Stand, when he said that he doesn't believe that Fulham's ticket should be more expensive than Manchester United. These are very, very narrow-minded views that do concern me more than Dan Ashworth's being sacked. And I also look at what happened with the Euro away tickets. They stopped the collection with that, which is absolutely destroyed what the club had in place for Euro aways. So there's a number of things that concern me. I think right now, they could, dare I say, patience is wearing thin. I know they're only in the door, but they're making a lot of questionable moves. And I wouldn't go as far as to say they're as bad as the Glazers. But I think what we're learning is, just like the Glazers, they are more businessmen than maybe football men. Because at the moment, they're looking at ways to find money and not ways to please us.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, and I agree in a way. But do you think that the track record at Lausanne and Nice comes to show now, and we see, as you mentioned, businessmen running a football club have
Yeah.
no clue what they actually are doing?
I think that's another worrying factor, Jarvis, because you're mentioning the experience that they have previously. So they haven't just bought into Manchester United. They're not these newbies in the football world. They have experience. They've seen how things work in different leagues. So I think that we need to see some results soon. We need to see the club in a better situation, because the mood right now, it's not helped by the results. It's definitely not helped by the results, and the pressure will mount. And look, pressure is part of being at Manchester United, but the things that I've mentioned, the redundancies, the tickets, and these are all things that could have been avoided.
But final question. I know you're conscious of time, but do you think there's a way out of this, and what can they do to mend the previous problems that they're not all made by INEOS? There's a lot of play problems from the Glazer time, but INEOS needs to make this right, as Phil said. How do they do it?
It's such a tough task. We're talking about 18 years of the club being steered in the wrong direction by the Glazers. Like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. But the one thing that we don't want to see is that the fans have to pay for this. It's not our fault that results aren't going well. We backed the team through the hardest of times. Tough times, win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter. We're always going to be there. But the only way that we won't be there the whole time is if they continue to price us out. And Manchester United, I thought they learned it during COVID. I thought every football club learned that football is nothing without fans. But it's only been a few years since the pandemic, and it seems that they've already forgotten that. So I think there is a way back, Jarvis. There is a way back for them, but they need to prioritize the right things. And I think that they need to sound a little less like the Glazers, if at all possible. That would be appreciated.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Stu, I will let you chip in.
Yeah, just before you go, Dale, you mentioned the ticket price. What's going to happen is that season tickets are going to be phased out. So season ticket holders like myself are no good to the club. There's a big reason for that. So we couldn't go to, or my lad couldn't go to the, can't remember which match it was now, a couple of weeks ago. And I got face value of my ticket back. And the club then sold the ticket for 66 quid, so maybe 30 quid more. So I'm no good as a season ticket holder to the club, because they can make more money off fans who aren't season ticket holders. So back when I was growing up, and when Phil probably was going through the junior section at Old Trafford, it was league match ticket books were floating in and around. You could buy tickets for reasonable money. You could scalp tickets back when we were, when I was growing up, and Phil was playing at a young age at the club. You could scalp tickets. I mean, crikey, I stood in the Cop in 1988 on a scalp ticket, watching Man United drew 3-3 with Liverpool that day. And you can go anywhere around the country and scalp a ticket. You can't do that now for a variety of different reasons, the way that the ticket system is. But they don't. The problem that you've got is it's very, very simple. Whether we like the Glazers, whether we like INEOS or not, they are businessmen. So you're absolutely 100% right about that. They don't know how to necessarily run a football club, which is why they've got Barada in, but they know how to run a business. And they know how to generate income. And they know that to generate income, you've got to have tough choices. It's a fiscal decision for Ratcliffe and a footballing decision for Barada. And somewhere along the lines, they've got to meet and meld in the middle. And that doesn't always happen. So Manchester United was hemorrhaging cash. We all know this. Don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand we're hemorrhaging cash. But we're doing that on a multiple channels, mainly, as Phil quite rightly said, player salary, mainly managerial salary, mainly as well at the time executive salary. when you consider the amount of money that the executives were earning at that particular time, millions. Woodward in particular, I think he still owns a 1 or 2% stake. But Ratcliffe could look at it one or two ways. He can look at it from the longevity side of it, and he wants to be here at Manchester United for a long, long time. Or he could look at it from a venture capitalist point of view. And a venture capitalist point of view gets in year one and dips out at year 4 or year 5. Within that period, they invest heavily and transform it into a profit-making business. So ultimately, he could turn his 1.7 billion investment into 4 billion, depending on where he takes the club. Now, if he looks at it from a venture capitalist point of view, then it really is the profit line. So he's got to get the team working. He has to get the team, because side by side, the team working and the financial results of that, sponsorship, etc., will grow. He will grow his investment. The club will grow from 6 billion to 10 billion, or whatever it is that the Glazers want. And then everybody gets out. The Glazers move out, Ratcliffe moves out. Glazers get a shitload of money, Ratcliffe gets a shitload of money. But then you're into the realms of who wants to buy $10 billion, £10 billion sports franchise. So you're walking a very fine tightrope right now of, is Manchester United a football club first and foremost? Is it B, one of the most recognised brands in the world? I'm not talking about football, I'm talking the world. So you're talking up there with Apple and Aston Martin. You're talking maybe the top 5 to 10 brands. Or is it purely a financial vehicle for him? So there are 3 options on the table. As fans, we're only interested in the football side, but we're not investing the types of money that these guys are going. The other thing about it is that people go on about debt. Well, you know, most companies in the world have debt of some description. So the 760 million or $1 billion that Manchester United is in debt isn't irrelevant, because it's an affordable debt. Even the likes of Apple carry short-term debt. They have a short-term debt strategy and a long-term debt strategy. So I think their short-term debt strategy is about 18 billion. Their long-term is about 125 billion. Amazon hold debt. Everybody has debt so they can keep cash flow rolling. So when you've got cash flow rolling in a club, it enables you to work in and out the transfer market. So it's a difficult conundrum. And what Phil and Dale have said about the club itself is absolutely 100% accurate. And those are your 3 steps really to running a club of that basis. So you're right. Barca did it. They managed to service, and they're still servicing the debt. So debt is never an issue. It doesn't matter. Chances are the debt's hold on the Red Holding Group anyway, rather than Manchester United Football Club itself. What you will see is there'll be less and less and less dividends being paid out to the Glazers, because we're not making the type of profit. Because we're making, what do we make? 130? Was it 130, Dale? 130 million loss, 160? I can't quite remember now.
I think it was 130.
It was 130 million loss, but it still doesn't really, stupidly enough, it won't harm the day-to-day running of the business, and it probably won't even harm our PSR either. Will probably be quite close to it. So that's his choices. If he runs it venture capital, he's got to get the team running. He's got to get the team going. If he's in it for the long term, he can afford 1 or 2 years potentially of substandard results. But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Sorry, Dale, I know you got to go, pal. But we all know this. The kicker is the stadium. And the stadium will generate millions for this football club. Absolutely millions. And I wouldn't put it past them to be negotiating some kind of television deal as well in the background. And yeah, that's where we are, I'm afraid. Sorry to be so blunt, but that's where we are.
No. It's excellent, brilliant comment. Dale, before you leave, do you want to shout out your socials and your blog?
Yeah, sure. I am on Blue Sky now. You can find me at Dale OD. On Twitter as well, you'll find me Dale O'Donnell. Just search that in. On all social networks with the same name. So yeah, follow me. And thanks for having me again on the show, lads. I really appreciate your time and the conversation.
It's been brilliant. Thank you for coming on, Dale. United in Focus. Guys, go follow Dale O'Donnell on Twitter and his blog. Thank you for coming on.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just a point, by the way. Jamie's made a point about the transfers. He's absolutely right, by the way. Most transfers are paid over a period of time, whether it's 2 or 3 years. I think we had about 215 mil, something like that on transfers. But again, that can be serviced.
It's amortizational.
Exactly right. It can be serviced in
5 years, so it's hard to tell. Phil, how do you see this? Much has changed since you were at the club. It's been many years. I don't know. When was the last time you played for Man United? 2005, was it?
Yeah, I left in 2005, 2006 season.
Yeah. So what do you think has changed apart from the money? You know, the Glazers, they weren't around when you played there, or?
Yeah, no, I think they just about sort of.
They were buying the club, weren't they?
Came in, yeah, just around that. Just around that time, really, when I was sort of leaving, they were sort of coming through the door. So, yeah, it was. I didn't really sort of get a chance.
No, but as a player, how do the owners actually affect the dressing room and the players? Do they have a say, or is it all the manager? I know at your time we had Ferguson, but. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, when I was at the club, I think because it was ran so well and there was never really any issues, and if there was any issues, it just sort of seemed to get dealt with and sort of with minimum fuss, and there was not really anything in the press. I think the players just got on with the football, and obviously all the outside stuff was just dealt with in-house and was dealt with efficiently, and we had good people who did the job very well at that time. So I think for us as players, and obviously, you know, in the youth team and the reserve team, the sort of, there was never really any situations where that affected any of the.
Did you ever speak to Martin Edwards, or?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, we probably did, you know, cross paths a couple of times, and he maybe come into the training ground and you maybe bumped into him and sort of maybe had a little chat at dinner time or something like that. But as I say, it was never anything that would, you know, make you, you know, lose focus on what your job was as a footballer, as a professional. So yeah, as I say, we used to just, you know, be very focused, and as I say, there was a lot of good people at the club at that time. So, you know, everything, it was all singing and dancing. There was no issues. There was never any, you know, noise that was going on for so long that, you know, you would get a little bit worried or concerned. I think, as I say, the ship was steady. Everyone was singing off the same hymn sheet. Everyone was happy. The club was doing well. The players were all professional and did everything, you know, well. So, yeah, as I say, there was no real cause for concern at that time.
No, but we had instances with players like, for example, David Beckham at this time, getting too big for the club in a way, and other players, Ferguson had to force them out, or we don't really know actually all the details, but I would suspect that the owners would be involved in decisions like that. Do you think it was the bond between the manager and the owners that was like unbreakable? So when Ferguson wanted something, he got it. Or do you think that's representative of how the club is run today? Because I don't think the owners and the manager is in line.
Yeah, no, I think, as you just touched on there, I think that's inevitable at a football club. There is going to be instances over time, or, you know, that crops up every now and again where a player maybe oversteps the mark, or, you know, there's a dispute or a fallout with the manager. And I think the way it was with Ferguson, obviously, he was very strict and set in his ways with, obviously, you know, if you sort of, you know, didn't really sort of follow his way, or you stepped out of line, or there was distraction, or he felt that you would affect the team at some point, then there was only ever going to be, you know, one outcome with that. And, you know, it happened with David Beckham, as you say. But I think the way that was done, I think when you look at that kind of situation with Beckham, I would never look at that situation and think, you know, Beckham was a bad egg and he was forced out of the club. I think when David Beckham played for Manchester United, regardless of all the outside distractions and other things, he was an always exemplary. You know, he turned up to training. He would always work hard. If he had other things going on outside of football, he would always turn up on a match day and put a shift in and work his socks off and deliver. So there's no way I would ever look at, you know, the players that went out, you know, in terms of a Beckham or a Keane, you know, that them players just came to the end of the line with Manchester United for whatever reason and moved on and was professional. And obviously it was dealt with in the right way. Whereas now, I think because obviously the managers and the player power has sort of changed, I don't think that it would sort of go in the same way, if you like, where I think if you crossed Fergie back in the day, he would sort of speak to the owners and say, listen, you know, this is how it's going to go. And that would just get, you know, the green light and that would happen. Whereas now, because I think the players have got so much pull, so much power, the contracts are massive, the sort of getting players out because of how much money they're earning is more difficult and more problematic. I think that is now changed to a massive problem. Hence why we've been crying out for the recruitment to be a lot better, because we've seen over the years so many times you're bringing in players on massive contracts who don't really fit the bill in terms of are they the right character to play for Manchester United? And once sort of, you know, they've got to that point where they've sort of, you know, shut up shop and they don't want to work hard and, you know, they've spat the dummy out, that the players are then, you're in a situation where you've got players on 3-4 year contract on 300 grand a week, and you're left with a problem now to sort of maybe try and get them out on loan, or how can we force that player out? And they just wouldn't do it because obviously they're earning an absolute fortune. So, you know, we're making a rod for our own back by giving these players too much too soon, which is what Dale said before about, you know, making players come in straight away. And as I said, he said that, you know, the hard work should start from that moment there. You know, you've got to Manchester United, the biggest club in the world. That's when, you know, the hard work should be starting, and that you should be trying to kick on and prove to everyone how much of a player, you know, you can be. Because, you know, I think Man United is one of the hardest clubs for a player to come to and to sort of, you know, improve and kick on from where he was. So you've seen over the years how many players have come to Man United with massive expectation, been playing really well, and have then springboarded and gone on to that next level. There's not many. There's probably, you know, 3 or 4 I could probably think of from when I left the club to now that have came in and I've thought, wow, he's, you know, really stepped up and took these games to the next level, or improved, or shown consistency in his performances every week. A lot of them players have come in and the performances have gone down, or they've threw the towel in because they didn't want to work hard for the place, or they've not agreed with a decision, or they've been left out, and then they feel sorry for themselves, and that's it. They give up.
That's the sad element of football now, isn't it, Phil? Is that when you're buying a play, you're no longer just buying on ability, or what influence you could have on your starting 11. You're actually buying mental strength, you're buying personality, you're buying off-field potential issues or off-field harmony, and then you're looking at whether or not he's got a left or right foot, whether he's good in the air, whether he can read the game, whether he can pass, you know, what's his repertoire, you know, on a football pitch. All of that has to come into play now. When you were growing up, when I was growing up, when Jarvis was growing up, it was about talent and how you can nurture that talent to take you through to the first team, and then on to bigger and better things at international football, winning as many trophies as you possibly can. And I just feel that no longer exists in professional football anymore. You know, they're looking at, you know, the next Bentley or the next Ferrari or whatever, rather than actually, can I hit 20 goals? Can I hit 20 league goals this season? Not willing to put in the extra hard work.
Yeah, and I think, Stu, just on that as well, with, you know, when I think back to when I was at the club, regardless, there was of course there was players that came in and probably didn't hit the heights that, you know, they should have done, or maybe, you know, wasn't as good as what we probably thought he was going to be. But what you can say about that is every single player that came into the club at that time knew that the culture of the club was unbelievable because it was a shock to the system for a lot of the players. They'd come into the club and they would be shocked at the standards of training every single day. Like it would be a shock to the system that, you know, every single day in training, all them players out there were, you know, fighting nail and tooth to win that game of football on the training pitch. And that probably wouldn't happen at, you know, most clubs because the culture and the winning mentality of some of the players that we had was so infectious. It was
Phil,
so
can you elaborate a little bit on the hard, the level of training? Because I don't think a lot of people understand what it takes. Because as I heard and you read about Man United trainings, they were actually harder than the games during. So if you could compete during the week in training, going into game at the weekend was no problem because then you knew you had the level.
Yeah, and as I say, every single day in training, like you'd play little games, and if you lost that game, you'd come off and you'd be absolutely fuming. Like you'd go home and you'd be devastated, and it would ruin your day. And because you're so in the mold of, you know, wanting to win every single game, regardless whether it's in training, whether it's, you know, it doesn't even have to be training. It could be, you know, you could be doing some fitness testing. You want to be the best. You want to be the quickest. You want to be the best, you know, whatever little games or whatever you do, because that's the mentality that's bred throughout the club. So for me, I used to, you know, lucky enough, the odd occasion when I was sort of like maybe 17, 18, where you'd go and train with the first team. And even that was a shock to the system for me. And I'm sort of training and playing at the club every single day in the youth team and in the reserves. But when you step foot onto that first team training pitch, it's honestly, you can't not be on the top of your game because you get, you know, found out straight away. And the mentality of the players are, you know, regardless of whether you're a young kid, people are flying into me in tackles, you know, they expect the touch bang on. You've got to be so quick in the mind. You've got to be, you know, 2 or 3 steps ahead, because if you're not, you know, you're going to get found out and you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. And I think every single player that came into the club and was training with them players every single day, you couldn't not improve. You could not be, you know, a better player for it, because it just sucked you in. And as I say, it was infectious. And then, you know, everybody was, you know, off the pitch, everybody was great people. You know, you could speak to people, you could ask them questions. As a young player, I used to love, you know, questioning the forwards like Solskjaer and Van Nistelrooy and people like that. And they would have time at the time of day for you to try and speak to you and help you as a player, give you little snippets of information, which would, you know, you'd take away and then you'd go and practice that yourself, because obviously you want to get to the same standards as what they are. But I just think because the levels of training was so high back in the day, that then just became second nature. So when you go into a game on a Saturday, it's no different. You know, it's not like you know, it's a shock to the system that now we're playing for 3 points and we need to win the game. No, we're used to that every single day in training. Tackles are flying in, people are, you know, getting elbowed. There's, you know, young lads playing. Well, I'm not bothered. You're not getting, you know, because you're a young lad, I'm still going to fly into you. I'm still going to, you know, take your head off if you're the goalkeeper. Van der Sar's coming flying out. And again, that's brilliant, because you get then that ingrained into you straight away. So that when I go back training with the reserves, I'm thinking, right, well, if that's the standard over there, I'm going to take that over here and make sure I'm the best player over here, because I want to be back with them next week. And if I'm not, I'm still going to keep doing it, because that's what I've got to do to get anywhere near it. And that was so infectious, because looking at it, you're watching it, you're seeing how the players conduct themselves on and off the pitch. They're going in the gym straight after training. They're doing recovery. They're in the pool. They're in, you know, on the bikes. The way they eat, the foods they eat, you know, they look after the bodies. And as a young player, you're watching them and they're your role models, and you're thinking, right, you know, I've got to make sacrifices now. I can't be affording to, you know, do this and do that, because there's no chance I'm going to get to the level that these guys are at if I'm cutting corners.
So that's one of my bugbears, Phil, because you hear, don't you, all the time by pundits, fans, etc. Oh, Guardiola makes so-and-so a better player. Does he bollocks? You just explained how you make yourself a better footballer.
Yeah.
You get into that first team training, right? I'm going to fucking have you, Keno, today.
Yeah.
I'm going to see what you're made of. You're not going to see what I'm made of. I'm going to see what you're made of.
Yeah.
You know, that's what improves a footballer.
Of course, yeah. And as I say, it is hard because, you know, sometimes there's certain people that haven't got that inner desire, that inner mentality to, you know, go the extra mile and do extra training. And when you go onto that first team pitch, you've got to feel like you belong there, because if you don't, you're just going to get away. And
if you walk on there and you wilt, you're not walking back into first team training again. You're going back to where they think you belong. And this is the issue, Phil. You made a point, I think, on the first show with us a while ago now. I'm not picking out a player here, but look at Shea Lacey. Shea Lacey has got a boot deal. He's 16 years old and he's got a boot deal. So he's getting paid £1,000, 5,000 quid a year by Nike or whatever, and all the boots he can give. So he gives boots away when he drives out. You had a pair of Copper Mundials, stock boots given to you, along with your training kit, and maybe a pair of World Cups if you needed studs. Mm-hmm. That's what you were given. You weren't given 50 pairs for the season as a 16-year-old. You were given 2 pairs of boots, studs, screw-in 6 shooters, as we used to call them in the day, and Copper Mundials. The end. That's it. Pair of shin pads, and away you go. And you had to make them. You were cleaning boots. You can't underestimate walking in.
That's a massive part of what, obviously, I think that's changed now. And obviously, some things I sort of get, but I used to love going into training and you know, cleaning some of the first team players' boots, pumping up balls, making drinks, and that kind of stuff keeps you grounded, and it makes you understand that although you're at Man United, you might be a professional, you might be playing in the, you know, youth team or the reserves, and you know, on good money and all that kind of thing, but them little jobs that you used to have to do would keep you on the straight and narrow, would keep you grounded. No, you're not too good to, you know, not pump up the balls for when we're going training. You're not too good, not, you know. And it was great because I used to do Scholes's boots, so I used to clean Scholes's boots, and then at Christmas he'd give me a little bonus. He'd go, "There you go, Marshy, thanks for the boots." Did
he ever chuck them back at you and say, "What the fuck are these, Marshy?"
Yeah, to be fair, you'd have a bit of fun. You would, because sometimes you know, you'd clean them and you'd probably, you know, you'd not do them to the, you know, exact standard of probably what the players would expect, and they'd go, "What the fuck's this, Marshy? Like, you know, that's still got a bit of mud on it." And then, you know, you'd have a laugh with them, and then you'd go and clean them again. But you know, that's all part of team building and bonding and getting that practice with the first team lads. And as I say, they give you a bit of a bonus at Christmas for doing that as obviously a young player. And as I say, that's part of the experience and part of, you know, learning your trade and making yourself feel like, yeah, I'm doing well, but hang on, I'm not doing so well that I'm above doing all these little jobs that, you know, keep you focused and keep you sort of, you know, on the straight and narrow. Whereas now, you know, I walked around Carrington last year and you're seeing all these young players strolling around, and you know, they're all, you know, on the phones and all in like flash cars, and that's great. You know, I've nothing against any of that, but I just think that sometimes, because there's so many distractions now, and there's so many things that I would probably say to them and be like, listen, these extra little bits of time that you get, rather than be sat on your phone and, you know, on Twitter or doing whatever, go and, you know, get in the gym or go and work on something that you might feel like you can improve on. Or for me, it was always, when I had a bit of spare time, kind of go and, you know, watch the first team play, or kind of go and have a chat with, you know, Rude or Solskjaer or whoever it may be, to try and pick up little snippets of information, or kind of go in the gym and kind of do something that'll give me an extra 2-3% that might give me that opportunity to, you know, get a chance in the first team again, or, you know, get someone to notice, oh, he's Marsh, he's, you know, people would be walking around, and you take this for granted as well, because, you know, as you're walking around the complex, coaches are always sort of scanning and seeing who's doing what. And Paul McGinn's done that a few times. I've clocked him, and I've been doing a little bit extra or whatever, and I've seen him at the top balcony looking, and then before you know it, he's gone back in and gone, like, obviously I didn't know it at the time, but you think now, and he's, oh, fucking Marshy stayed behind and he's doing extra, fucking brilliant, you know what I mean? And then that No, if you're doing it three, 4 times a week, they're saying, well, bloody hell, he's, you can't knock him. He's obviously, doing everything. He's working hard. He's doing extra in the gym. He's working on his touch. He's doing finishing skills. He's asking the keepers to stay out for a bit of shooting practice. So all this little things that maybe seem irrelevant at the time, have a massive impact over time. And, listen, as I say, when you're young and you're a bit naive and you don't really think about, the long-term effects that can have. But I noticed and I watched some of the players and I thought, do you know what? I definitely need to do a little bit extra if I'm going to, reach the heights that some of these lads are at, or if I'm going to try and, get in people's eye line and think, what, he's doing everything he can to, especially after the crash. I knew I needed to, do a little bit more and a little bit extra to get myself back to a level where I felt, I could, be one of the better players and maybe give me a chance to get back into that first team sort of set up and maybe get a chance of playing in a game. Because the standard was so high, I knew that just training and doing the basics alone was never going to be enough for me to get anywhere near it. So that's, for me, some of the stuff that some of these young lads should be looking at and trying to, do. Because there's people now who do like one-to-one sessions outside of football.
Yeah.
That was never a thing. So if that was a thing, I'd have been taking that opportunity as much as I could. I'd be working on my left foot. I'd be working on my heading. I'd be working on my touch. I'd be trying
exactly. I mean,
I didn't have that opportunity.
If you were playing with Ahmad, you'd fucking strangle him at some points, wouldn't you? Brilliant at getting around a player, but yet he's got to stretch to use his left peg to cross it, or he's got to come back on his left peg instead of using his right. Just spend 2 hours a week working on your right peg. Just try. Just go home. Just kick it.
It's the only way to improve.
And I go back and I go back and I go back. I'm glad you talk about it, Phil, because I talk about it all the time, and people just dismiss it. You are the only one that can improve you as a footballer. You're the only one that can improve yourself. If you want to walk into that dressing room and see Marsh, 39, you're 18 years old, 19 years old. You've been there. You've seen it. You've had that experience, seen your name and your number on the back of a shirt. Fucking hell. I just hope I get on today. Is your next thing. Right. Relax. Take a couple of minutes by yourself. Relax. Go through your routine. Get out, warm up. And then you try and get the gaffer's eye, don't you, all the time. You get up and you do a bit of running, and then look back. I wonder if the gaffer's watching or is the coach watching, that type of thing. You're doing your stretching. You're not bothered about the crowd. You're not talking to the crowd. You're not looking at them. You're concentrating on your space until you get that Marshy. And then you trot back, don't you? That fucking nervous tension, that your butterflies, and then you take your tracksuit top off and you're standing there. You might be standing there for 30 seconds, which feels like an hour, doesn't it? Waiting for the ball to go out of play. And then, Giggsy comes trundling off at 1 mile an hour because he can't be bothered or whatever. You're still waiting and you're jumping around, and then suddenly you cross that white line and that's it, isn't it? You're super focused, you're super sharp.
Yeah.
Why can't players replicate that? What is it that they have forgotten about doing that, about experiencing that? What is it that these players don't seem to care? I mean, I talk about it now. I get goosebumps even thinking about it.
Yeah. And as I say, I think, because the game has sort of changed so much and there is sort of loads and loads of like distractions and there's this and that. Whereas I think back in the day when obviously I was at the club and, everyone's together, I think that's a massive thing for me. Like now when I go to Carrington, like the first team is completely separate to all the rest of the players, which for me, I think they're missing a trick with that because I love going into training every single day, knowing that I was, part of the club and I felt valued and I was, being able to speak to some of the first team players at breakfast, being able to, do the boots and sort of chat to them in the corridors and be able to watch them training. After we'd finish, I'd always walk over and just keep my eye and have a look watch. You don't understand how much of a difference that makes because you sort of can smell, you can sort of touch it, you can feel that you're not that far away. and now, because they're completely separate, these lads nowadays are missing out on them experiences that you have with the first team, and you can be able, and you know, them conversations that you have with some of the players that maybe play in your position, or just some of the players that you get on with, you know, that makes you feel $1 million. Do you know what I mean? Like and you know, sort of, I can't remember every single conversation that I had with all the players over the years, because there was thousands of conversations. Yeah. But what I can remember is, I can remember going into training and coming home and thinking, wow, I've just done some shooting training there with Van Nistelrooy and like Solskjaer and Saha and Forlan and whoever, and like I'd go, well, I thought I was quite good finishing, but that has just literally, you know, blew my mind how good them lads are. So now my next focus is, right, I want to get, you know, 0.5% better.
How
so
do you do that? Yeah.
Training, I want to be able to then go to me and go, Marsh, bloody hell, you're doing well this week. Have you been practicing, or, you know, your finishing's improved? Like, good on you, because that's what it is. Like every even though I know I'm probably not to the level that them lads are right now, that's given me the drive to be like, right, I want to be, you know, 20% better by the end of the season, so that I'm competing with these lads when we're doing finishing drills. All right, I might not be as good as Van Nistelrooy, but I want him to be looking at me going like, wow, you know, you're doing well. You're you know, striking the ball well. Your body position's good. You know, the way you approach it now is better. You're moving onto the ball. You're being more aggressive with your finishing, and that, because you get the opportunity to do that with them players, naturally that's going to improve you, and you can't. So that is, you know, you can't buy that kind of. A coach can give you all the tips in the world, and that's fine. You can do all that, but there's nothing that can replicate doing training sessions with elite players that you're aspiring to, you know,
to be.
100%. Guys, absolutely fascinating listening to about how you train, and I just want to mention my good friend Noradin on the United Real Therapy.
Hey, Noradin.
He's on the breach to 12,000 subscribers. So if you haven't, go subscribe to his channel.
Well done, mate. Well done.
And he always said, and I heard him today on Saeed's channel and on his own channel, he talked about he wants us to drop out of the Europa League and the Cups. He wants us to focus, play one game a week, and focus on training, because he wants the level of training to come back at the level we need at Man United, and then everything will suit itself. As you talked about the level of training in your time, Phil. What's your thoughts about his take? Do you think it would be probably a wise move, and probably for the best when you think of it, to get only one game a week and get the level of training back? Because as we know now, we heard about Amorim maybe have had 7 sessions. That's been okay. And it's mostly recovery sessions and games all the time. So you never get to see the level of training and what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I think, you know, obviously, as United supporters, you always want to, you know, see United in the big competitions. But I think maybe, you know, at this moment where we are as a club, and obviously the new manager coming in, obviously wanting to, you know, instill a culture and a new style of play, it might be a blessing in disguise, maybe, you know, that we maybe miss out, so that he gets more opportunity to do things on the training ground, and obviously not have to worry about, you know, a quick turnaround and having games every couple of days. So yeah, I can see why, you know, a lot of people would think that would be a benefit, and hopefully, you know, that, you know, will, you know, come to fruition, because I think the manager definitely needs to keep working and keep, you know, banging the drum with, you know, the way he wants to play. But I think what's key is that, you know, we probably need to get, you know, some new players that can probably suit the way that he wants to play. So, as I say, it's not going to be a short-term fix. I think it is going to take time for the manager to bring in the right personnel, the right players who can hopefully then, you know, instill that culture and style of play.
But Phil, you know, as a player, you know, as recovery, you played a lot of games too. Doing recovery training, maybe you do some jogging, you do some rondos, some corner set piece action, you go through some tactics, you walk through the formation maybe. and it's not the same as playing. You want to go to training, you want to play 7-7, 8-8, 9 against 9, or 5 against 5, and get that adrenaline going, and then the level of competitiveness, and we cannot miss it. And I think missing out is a big problem.
100%, because I think, as you say, when you're playing so many games in quick succession, a lot of the time you probably don't get a chance to, do them really good training sessions where, you're putting a really good shift in and you sort of getting that sort of match replication of how you train as you play, because it's obviously now sports science and players have run too much and you need to go in and you can't do any extra, which again, I think that's a load of rubbish, to be honest. I think as a player, I know my own body. If I feel like I want to do a bit of shooting after training, I want to do a bit of shooting after training. I think you can overanalyze and overlook all these, like, oh, he's ran so much, and there's nobody who knows the body better than the player. And fair enough, like if you've got loads and loads of games, and you sort of don't want to risk someone getting injured. But I think for me as a player, I want to make sure that if you look at some of our players at the moment, some of them definitely need to be working on the training ground at certain aspects of the game. And if you're not being allowed to do that, to sharpen your mind up and to make sure your technique's right and get that feeling of whipping balls or like, hitting the back of the net or whatever, that breeds confidence. And if you're not being allowed to do that, then in my mind, this is, just my opinion, they're holding players back from being able to polish up their skills, being able to polish up their tools for what you need to do on a Saturday or for the next game. Because
I agree wholeheartedly, Phil, because you're right. Actually, you can regulate your own body. You understand how to regulate your own body, and during the game, you can regulate your own body, can't you? So if you need that extra minute, that extra 2 minutes of rest, you won't make that run. But you'll only not make that run when it's not detrimental to the attacking side of the game or the defensive side of the game. So you'll just amble around for a couple of minutes, and players are like, Marshy was ambling around. Well, hold on. For 10 minutes before that, he was backwards and forwards. You can be a supreme athlete, but you've got to be able to get air back in your lungs. You've got to be able to regulate, your leg strength, and just get that. And then you spend the next 5 minutes playing your way back into the game, don't you? So you get the ball, you drop it off 2 yards, and then and that's how football is. I don't see any of our players doing that. I don't see any of our players making any attempts to, regulate their breathing, decide when to make that dart, when not to make that dart, but do it in the right way, a way that, as I say, benefits the team. Now, you're right about training, and I agree with you. Jarvis, you're absolutely right. If you can do 1 touch, 2 touch, 7 aside, you can play within a very small space, do 3-on-3, no goals, but it's constant round robin football. That just keeps you mentally charged. You can only play with your left peg if you're right footed, for example. Things like we would take for granted, Phil, that crikey, you'd do on a Saturday afternoon when you're out with your mates up the park, wouldn't you? You got two goalposts made out of fucking jumpers. You tried to improve your game then, didn't you? Every time you played for your school, you tried to, for the county, you tried to improve your game. And I just don't see it, and I look at our players, I look at Forest, the way that Forest attacked us with a real aggression, not just spirit, but real aggression. Didn't do anything fancy with it, got the ball and moved it on, and all they did was just push themselves up the pitch, constantly push themselves up the pitch with the ball. And every time we got it, we were dicking about with the back. We must have had 15 minutes of dead air football. And what I'm talking about is Anana to Martinez, Martinez to De Ligt, De Ligt to Dallo, Dallo to De Ligt, De Ligt to Martinez, Martinez back to Anana. Passages are played 2-3 minutes at a time where we weren't going anywhere with it. And Forest were just getting their breath back, regulating their bodies, and and doing it. And then we just don't do that. And honestly, Phil, it must frustrate the fuck out of you. It really must.
It does. Definitely does, mate. Because as I say, obviously, when you've been used to seeing and being allowed to sort of express yourself and do whatever you want, basically, in the era that I grew up. Because I would always, after training, not have to worry about, asking for permission to stay out and do extra. I would just get a bag of balls, ask one of the keepers, or just say, or whatever, and I would just go and do it. And there'd be people wouldn't even bat an eyelid. They'd just be going, oh, fair play, he's going doing a bit extra, regardless of whether I had a game the next day, whether I had 2 or 3 games coming up that week, because the physios, the coaches would trust you to know your own body. And if you feel like you want a bit of extra, like, as I say, it's different if you're saying, right, I want to go and run 10K and I want to go and do that. That's not because, you don't need to do that. All I wanted to do was practice on a certain part of my game where I think, right, I might need, as a striker, I want to hit the back of the net, at least 5, 10, 15 times before I go in from training to just make me feel good. I want to work on a particular finish. So it might be balls getting cut back to me on the edge of the box, running onto it, bang, that bottom corner, crisp.
And then the keeper saying to you as well, Phil, float 3 or 4 in for me. I'm not brilliant at catching. Just chuck in 3 or 4 for me, mate, so I can get in and catch it.
Exactly.
Can we get a defender in so I can get pushed off the ball? I want to get pushed off the ball.
Yeah. And that's what we used to do, most days after training. And sort of some days it might be, me, can I have, can I have a defender? I want to do some 1v1s. I want to do some getting across the front post, getting across my man, doing some crossing and finishing. And then the next day, the keepers, might ask me to do some crossing for him. Oh, can you come in? I want to come out. And then everyone used to sort of, scratch each other's back because they'd want to work on something. They need someone to do something. I want to work on something. Can you go in net because I want it in that situation? So I don't just want to be hitting balls into an empty net. I want to be hitting balls with a goalkeeper in net so that when I get into that position, I've got to hit the corner. Otherwise, I'm not scoring. I've got to make sure I'm in the right area of the goal, and the keeper's going to narrow that angle for me. So that in a game, I've got to be precise and hit that base. Otherwise, I'm not scoring. And you can't do that unless you have the right people in positions, because you can't replicate a match situation when you're just doing things on your own. So I used to
reminded me something what you're saying about you don't want to hit an empty net. When I was about 8, we used to go to training, and you know what kids are like when they're 8, and our coach used to stop us shooting into an empty goal. He said, would you learn from shooting into an empty goal? He says, a waste of time. Of time. And if we did, he'd have us run a lap of the pitch. Right,
because a lot of the I obviously got my own coaching business and I do shooting. And sometimes obviously you've not got the luxury of having a goalkeeper, but I always say to him, regardless of whether you've got a goalkeeper or not, your finishing's got to be done at match pace, and you've got to make sure that you're doing it, and you're not just running up and like floating it down the middle of the net. Because I'd say, well, would you do that in a game? Would that go in a game? No, because the goalkeeper would just catch that. So when you're doing it, you've got to make sure that you're doing it with a purpose, and you're trying to focus on getting a good touch, and you're hitting the part of the goal that you're aiming for, because otherwise there's no point in you doing the exercise, because you're just going through the motions and you're just doing it for the sake of it. So I always try and say, when you're doing exercises, and especially when I used to do extra after training, I'd love to have a goalkeeper or a defender or something that would give me that extra little bit of, right, I can't just go through the motions here. I've got to focus. I've got to make sure my touch is good. My finishing's got to be on point, otherwise keeper's going to save it. And I want to make sure that I'm hitting, where I want to be hitting 4 or 5 times, so that when I go in from training, I'm like, right, I'm ready for this next game. I just
did Ollie ever tell you how to strike the ball?
Did what? Sorry,
Did Ollie ever tell you how to strike the ball? Because he had a clean strike.
Yeah, to be honest, that was one of my biggest strengths anyway. I could really strike a ball. Like my technique and all that was really good. The thing I struggled with sometimes was because sort of I had quite a nice ping. I think sometimes my go-to when I was going through on goal was always trying to like hit it with power. Whereas as I got older and a little bit more wiser, I started sort of using a little bit more finesse and opening my body up a little bit and having that little bit more guile in my finishing. So that was something that he really helped with, because he was a great finisher. He never really smashed that many. He used to, have that cool, calm, and just would be able to like, his decision making in terms of in front of goal. He used to always seem to pick the right, type of finish, which is where I learned a lot from him. Same with Rude. He would always, especially in and around the box, anyone as good as Rude. He was just like bang, open body up, finish. Give keeper the eyes, slot. Whatever it was. And as I say, that's the kind of thing that you want to be involved in, because you watch and you think, all right, so next time I'm in that position, I could do that, but now I could also do that, because just seen Rude do that 2 or 3 times, and that's like mustard. So
you see today a lot of the strikers, they're really, really quick, like Lucky Luke in like faster than their own shadow. You see them
no backlift
those.
No backlift there. They get out of the feet quickly, don't they? We used to do
the element of surprise as well. Like that's what I was surprised at. Sometimes, like obviously they do drills where someone would ping a ball into the edge of the box and you had to control it in the D and then finish with your second touch. So if your touch went out the D, that's it. You back in the queue. See you later. So it was ruthless. So balls would be getting fired in at you. Like sometimes it'd be like around your neck, so you've just got to bring it down on your chest, and then. But these lads were just, it was like it was a joy to watch. To be fair, they were just getting balls pinged in wherever it was. They'd just bring it down, kill it, and bang straight out the left foot, right foot. Chest volley, like out the feet, whip. And to say it was brilliant for me, because I was just watching and thinking, wow, the standards is like, and you want to impress, so you want to raise your game to the top of your game, because you want to make these lads go, wow, he's this lad can finish. It brings you on, and then you go in from training and you go home and you buzz in and you're like, wow, I've just been able to spend 20 minutes with 3 or 4 of the best strikers in the world, watching how they finish. And
Rude, Ollie, who else were in the club at your time? You had Rude, you had Ollie. Who other strikers were there?
Louis Saha, Alan Smith, Larson.
Larson would have been a joy to watch, wouldn't he? But then again, you're talking about the days where you come into training, you jog onto the pitch rather than stroll like a big fucking poser.
Yeah, and little things like that. Like obviously nowadays, I went the other month to Carrington, and I'm watching the players, and they're all, rolling out. And I used to think, well, we used to all jog out. We'd be out there like straight away, like sprinting over to the pitch. You'd have the balls out, you'd be doing a bit of passing, then you'd be straight into a rondo, then you'd be straight doing like some sort of like running drills, and then straight into like possession and different drills. Now it's all like everything seems really relaxed and
lethargic, isn't it?
Like lethargic, and there's no real tempo. Obviously, when they start training, it is, but it used to be like we used to have to carry big drink. We used to have to carry, so 2 of us, someone would have a bag of balls, someone would have like training gear, someone would have to be 2 of us would have to bring like a big container with drinks. So we used to have like big drinks tub that we used to have to carry out. And then obviously sometimes if you're on the jobs, so like we used to have a rota. So if you're on the jobs, we'd be training on the very far pitch. So I'd be running out with a bag of balls, and then I'd have to sprint back again to come and get like the cones or mannequins. Then I'd be coming back helping one of the lads with the drinks. So I'd be going 3 times there and back, or even training. So I'm sweating already. I'm ready for training from just getting the gear out.
But you warmed up, though, Phil. You know what I mean? You kind of like.
Guys, interesting. But I know you're running low on battery on your phone.
Yeah, my charger's upstairs, but I'll stay on as long as I can. As I say, I'll stay on until it drops out.
Fantastic. We have the Q&A session coming up. We will do a quick Q&A session. Guys, if you have any questions for Phil, me, or Stu, fire them in, and let's play the Q&A.
Yeah, perhaps you want to get those up.
You don't have to answer the question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Yes, fantastic. I will give Stu the honor to be the host of.
Dear, I'll switch us. What a fantastic show, Phil. You've been absolutely immense as always, pal. Love talking to you because we get to really understand football and how it should be played and that type of thing. And then you got me and Jarvis as your wingmen trying to keep the show entertaining, or at least. Just before we start the Q&A, Phil's got to go shortly, so we want to rattle through the questions.
Yes.
But just to, again, this show is to really remember.
Just bear with me. Let me go and I'll go and get my charger. Yep. I'll make
okay. Yeah.
Charger, and then we can start with that. Yeah.
Brilliant. This obviously was a big mention to Kath, who we lost, and also as Jamie Wayne did mention, Nani's retired today.
Yes.
Player. Wasn't he? Yeah, I mean, obviously, he used to score his goal and did a backflip, but he got banned. That got banned, didn't it, by Fergie after a while. He scored
when I think of Nani, I think of the red card he got against Real Madrid in that Champions League semi-final, jumping up. Even today, I can't really understand what actually happened, but for me, it's not a red card. If you know football, just crash, something happened. I know. Yeah, but Nani was a fantastic player, and he even won the Euros with Portugal. He was one of their best players in that tournament.
He did, yeah.
Good player, fantastic player. I just want to, when we talked about this training, I just want to show you guys this. This is out on Twitter today with
Obi Martin. Yeah, Obi Martin. Yeah.
So this is actually quite good.
Good. Slide. First time, open the body up. Oh wow. Slide. Good. Finish first time.
What a finish.
1, 2, 1. Good. Don't worry about this, coach. Cheeto. Play, off you go. Drive. Good. Nice, superb. Feet. Good. Slide.
And he goes on for 2 minutes. You can watch him train how he shoots, and it's a brilliant illustration.
You've got dedication now, and you've got somebody who's dedicated, a young kid who wants to make it in the game, and he knows the only way to do it is to work hard. You've got to work, as hard as you possibly can, and we've got some established players that just can't be bothered anymore.
But he looks like a massive talent, this Chido Obi Martin.
He looks very good so far.
Buckets of goals, loads of goals for the under-18s.
Yeah, no, he has. I think we've got
possibly bring him through the season. Do you think, or
I don't see why not. I think you've certainly got to give him a chance. Why not? I mean, look, Amarin's in a situation where he's got to make a decision whether 3-4-3 is the best way or 3-5-2 is the best way. And he's got to make a decision on who he wants to play in those positions. He doesn't seem to know at the moment. City's going to be a real problem for us this weekend. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got an early kickoff on Thursday, 4:45, isn't it? 4:45 or 4:46? 4:46, I think, Thursday. We've got an early kickoff. And we've got to make sure that that we win that game to take some kind of momentum in. So anyway, let's start the Q&A, shall we? Phil, hopefully Phil will be able to join us. Got some great questions again, as always. But we'll start off with Naz M87. Honest question, lads. Do you think ex-United players do not make it easy on the current players? United right now feel like Liverpool in the mid-2000s when Kenny Dalglish had a looming presence. It's a really good question. Jarvis?
I think you are onto something, Nash. I think it's a good question. But as a player today, you shouldn't be worried about the past. You should just focus on yourself and improve your game all the time. But being a Manchester United player comes with a lot of history, and this is what you get. You get scrutiny. You always get the pundits' comments about your performance, and it will be compared to the yesteryears and how great it was 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And if you can't handle it, you can't be a Man United player easily. But yes, I agree. I think you're right. I think it influences the players today. How do you see it, Phil, Stu?
Yeah, no, I think he's right, but I agree with you. If you can't handle criticism, you can't handle the spotlight, you can't handle playing for Manchester United, be somewhere else, do something else, go and wilt at a lower league championship club if you want. Footballers of today are so embedded in fame and fortune, they're not really embedded on what they're there to do, and that's to win football matches. And listen to a player like Phil, who's unfortunately had his career cut short. Just still shows that love, that determination, that absolute want and will to learn, develop, become a better person, a better footballer. And I just don't see that in our squad. And it's, as Jamie says, it's been upsetting for the last 11 years that we're fielding 11 that are so weak-minded, and mentally it's quite tough. So we agree. Naz, I hope that answers your question. This is just a very short answer, Jack. Is it time to call out INEOS? It's always time to call out football club owners, Jack. You should do it constantly. As Dale said, Dale, if you didn't see Dale O'Donnell today, earlier on in the show, was brilliant. We'll get him on again for a full episode. You should always be calling out the owners of a football club. We should never be happy as fans, and we should hold them accountable as much as we can. And so it is time, and we should. There's a question for Phil on that one, so hopefully he'll come back.
We go back to that when
we'll go back to that one.
Just need to get this charger. He said he
would. So Jack, we kind of covered that in the show. I don't know if you were listening. I hope you were. Our INEOS failing at Manchester United. Difficult to say yes and difficult to say no, isn't it, Jarvis, at the moment?
Yeah, I would say it hasn't been 100% so far. But I think it's very difficult to come in and do a perfect job when you think of the mess the Glazers left them with. The stadium is falling apart. The squad is dreadful. The attitude of the players, they are on long time, super big contracts. It's very, very, very difficult to get them out of this club and actually renew this squad into a competing squad that actually can do something. And it will take time, and they will make mistakes. They will learn on the job, and I'm not sure if I'm INEOS out or INEOS in, but
we are where we are, aren't we, Jarvis? With it.
But at the moment, sometimes I feel like they are doing INEOS's job, and INEOS are doing Glazers' job, and Glazers are still the owners. For me, sometimes it feels like that, and then I get really bummed out. But sometimes I feel that the INEOS are actually taking us somewhere. So it's kind of a split question. I'm not sure.
It is a very difficult one. It's a good question to have, but a very difficult one. So Jack, I hope Jarvis has weaned his way into answering the question for you. Fred the Red, MUFC News.
Fred the Red.
Question to all four of you. There's only two of us at the minute, but when you posted it, there was four. I bumped into Pogba today, and he's looking for a new club as a free agent. Given the state of our finances, would you take him back for a third time for free and wait till March? I'll be very brief on that one. I wouldn't. I'm not. I don't think it's ever been in question his ability at all. I think what's always been in question is his attitude and his off-field antics as opposed to his on-field antics. I don't think Amorim can afford to have a player with his personality in the squad at this point. But there's absolutely no doubt in the ability. I think he'll be one of the players that when he hangs up his boots, will be quite disappointed with what he didn't achieve as opposed to what he should have achieved in the game. Although World Cup winner though, isn't he? So,
I'll answer as quick as I can. I would say no effing way I would take Pogba back. No way.
Fred, that answers your question.
You have had two chances already. Injury prone, he will probably demand way too much wages. He will take focus away from what we actually need to focus on at the moment, that to get the level of football up again. And yeah, it's totally the wrong direction. No Pogba
Yeah.
for me. I wouldn't take him
Totally.
if they paid us.
No, that's a fair comment. That's a fair comment.
Yeah.
Fred, Jarvis was short and sweet on that one. Trev comes in. Quick question. Do you think the Qatari money would have been a better option? I don't. I think you're going to see at some point over the next 2 years, if this football task force comes into play, whether or not state ownership is warranted or going to be allowed in UK football. So I think we're probably better out of that situation rather than in it at this point in time.
Well, it's tempting with the Qatari money. That's the thing, because that's what we need at the moment. We need more money because we are struggling now. If Qatari was in, we would most likely wouldn't have been had to raise the ticket prices.
Well, it's
we
worth
would
noting.
having plans ready for our new stadium. I think there would be a clear out in the squad. They would have erased our depth. So a lot of things would have looked differently if Qataris was in.
Yeah, it's worth noting though that Mansour has diluted his shares in the Manchester City Football Group this week. So people are diluting their shares all the time. Like I said to you earlier, if it's a venture capitalist move by Jim Ratcliffe, you want to see some kind of profit, then he might sell up with a profit, or he might continue. It's one of those at the moment. We never really knew, did we, with Qatar, who was actually bidding. We didn't really know about the Sheikh Jassim. So I think it's difficult to quantify that one. But good question, Trev. One of Trev's amazing questions. What time did Stu arrange for his Mankini fitting from Temu? I heard him texting constantly tonight as he's on speed dial. My lad's been watching the show tonight. He doesn't normally tune in, but my boy's been watching the show, and he's been sending me messages saying that he's really enjoyed it, and which is nice to hear. So on that one for Trev. Okay, hopefully Phil will come back, so we will ask him that one. Same on that one. Right. Neil says, this is a good question, this. I'd love to know your thoughts on this one. Jarvis, do United need a director of football? Neil doesn't think so.
Well, it depends. But in my opinion, yes, we need a director of football, because I think we have been having too many people without the right credentials running the club, like Arnold and Murtaugh and a lot of these people. What's his name again? Woodward. So, yeah. So, but it's not a quick fix to have a good people in place, and I think it will take a lot of time before you see how a director of football who actually has some qualities influence the club, because it will take maybe 2, 3, 4 years before we actually see everything turning around. So I think, let's say when it comes to Ashworth, it's a little bit premature sacking him at 5 months, because you can't possibly know what he can do in the job, besides personal conflicts and stuff like that. But for me, I think, as I said on Noradin's channel the other day, I think it's good for to have people who can have their opinion, come with their ideas, and don't be afraid to shout them out. We don't need a group of yes men, Jim Ratcliffe's yes men running the club, because that will be pointless. We need people with competence, and that's just it. If we have people with competence, I think we will end up in the right direction, but we must give it a little bit more time.
Okay, lovely. Phil, good to have you back.
Trying to get that charger in behind this Christmas tree. You should have seen me then. Oh man.
Don't you panic. Got a few questions for you. First one is from Fred the Red. Phil, do you remember Nani? And if you do, what memories do you have of him?
Yeah, no, very good player. Obviously, Nani was at the club, when I was there, and he was a brilliant guy. Very, very similar to Cristiano in terms of the way he sort of looked after himself and was a specimen. Looked after himself, always in the gym, very dedicated. I think maybe a little bit unlucky, really, that he was probably at the club, at the same time as Ronaldo. Really, because I think he's a very underrated player. I'd love to have him in the team now. Do you know what I mean? If we had someone like him now, everyone would be raving about him. But yeah, no, had a fantastic career, brilliant servant to the club. I think scored some absolute bangers. Always loved seeing his celebration. And yeah, he's played at the top level till he was like in his late 30s, which is a credit to him. He's played international football. And he was a really, really nice guy. As I say, I think, maybe a little bit unlucky that he probably didn't stay or play as many games as he probably would have wanted to at times for United, but always performed well when he did play and was somebody who I really sort of got on with and sort of enjoyed watching and learning from. I think he was a great player, great person, really nice guy. And as I say, he's done really well. He's had a great career.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Fred, that answers your question. Got a really good question from Trevor Wade here, which is unusual for Trev. Only joking, Trev. Question: what is the best piece of advice, Phil, you've ever had or got to improve as a player, either from a fellow professional or a manager?
Ooh.
It's a really good question, that.
Yeah, it's a really good. There's one that sticks out for me, because this saying used to always be sort of banded around, and the quote was "practice makes perfect." And one of my old coaches used to hate that saying. He used to say, "Practice doesn't make perfect at all, because there's nobody who is perfect." And what he said was, "Practice makes permanent." And he said, what I mean by that is the amount of work that you put in, regardless of, what thing you're trying to improve or what you're working on, that will make a permanent impact if you put the work in. So you won't be perfect at it, but if you work hard enough at a particular skill or a particular, piece of work that you want to improve on, you will get a permanent result that you will improve gradually over time. But you won't be perfect, because nobody's ever perfect at anything. And I think that sticks out with me, just because, especially for me, because I knew, obviously, after I had the car crash and that I was sort of playing catch up anyway, I needed to do extra. I needed to make sure that I was in the gym and rehabilitating and making my legs stronger and trying to do a little bit extra with the physios and any extra that I could to try and, give me that extra 10%. And that quote sort of stuck with me, just as if to say, like, you're not going to keep practicing and get to a perfection, but you're going to keep practicing and you're going to make something more permanent and you're going to improve on that particular thing. And I always think that you only get out what you put in. So as much effort as you put into something, if you turn up to training and you want to be 10, 15% better, but when you've got spare time and when you've got time to go and improve and do extra after training, if you want to get straight off and go to the Trafford Centre, or you want to go swanning around, playing on your phone or doing other things, then you can't really expect them results, because you're not doing everything that you can to get there. So I always thought, and I watched players and I seen other lads around my age, there was loads of good lads who would always want to do extra and would want to improve. And sometimes like I always think, there was times as well when I look back and I think sometimes you would get like sort of called for trying to do extra, brown nosing and look at him, he's being busy and all this kind of thing. And that sort of would put a lot of people off doing it, because they probably thought, you're not one of the cool ones who would just, turn up and just train and get off and, all this and that. But I knew that I needed to do, and I wanted to do extra, because I wanted to try and, utilize that, because when you're at United, you're in that bubble, and you feel as though you get given everything and best facilities, and you get, treated like kings. You go to different countries, you get all the best gear, the best food, the best training. But what you want to try and, even though you take that for granted a little bit when you're there, you want to try and utilize and make the most of that opportunity that you've got. So if I've got a chance to go and do training after normal training with some of the first team players, strikers, damn right, I'm going training with them first team players. Not missing an opportunity like that. Do you know what I mean? And people might look at him and go, "Oh, he's being busy there, going doing extra trip." Well, no, I just want to improve. I want to get better. I want to watch some of these lads and see how they do it, and then try and incorporate that into my own game, and be better for it.
But not the Rabona.
No, the Rabona didn't go quite as well as I thought. It was a Brazilian coach that I thought would have, looked all, but yeah, never mind.
Great answer.
It's just an internal reference when you talked about the Roy Keane incident with the Rabona.
Yeah.
People who don't know.
No, we can't. Trev is the short answer to that, mate.
I'll say.
It might have been a couple of quid more than Phil's wage pack.
Couple more zeros than what I was used to that week.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. Right, another couple of questions for you, Phil, from Steph. Question to Phil: what, if anything, would you do differently if you had your career again?
I mean, in hindsight, sometimes you look. When I left United and I went up to Inverness first, actually, and went up to Scotland for a little bit. And then when I came back, I ended up signing for Blackpool. And to be fair, in hindsight, there was a couple of other offers that I'd sort of been given that, and again, this isn't a regret. It's just obviously when you look back and think if things might have gone a little bit differently, then that maybe would have been a different decision that I maybe would have taken. But you can't really look back and think on things like that. That's just
the Holloway era.
Yeah. So, no, it was. I signed when Simon Grayson was manager.
Okay.
A 2-year contract. So the first year was Grayson, and then Holloway come in the season after, and they got promoted to the Prem. But it just didn't quite work for me. I mean, I was doing really well at the start, and then I got a bad injury, and I was out for the majority of the season. And then I didn't really get back in. I asked to go out on loan, and he didn't want to send me out on loan for whatever reason. And then I ended up sort of leaving, sort of in that second year, because I just couldn't get any game time, and they wouldn't send me out on loan, and there was issues with money. And so really, I look back on my career and I think, there was probably a few little things in terms of going to a club at a certain time or, something like that. But as I say, the things that you can't really, preempt. It's just the luck of the draw. And, I think that, everything happens for a reason. And I don't really have any regrets as such. I was lucky enough to play for Man United for 10 years.
Exactly.
Came through, an amazing time. Yeah, sometimes I think maybe if I'd have been there at a different era, probably would have got more of an opportunity to play in the first team and maybe had more chances, if you like, to sort of showcase what I was about. But because, I was there at the time it was really, really difficult for young players to get a sniff in the first team and really break into that first team, because you had to be exceptional. And I don't really look back with regrets. It was more of a, wow, I've had the opportunity to play with Ronaldo, with Rooney.
Exactly, yeah.
Ferdinand. So for me, that was in itself, I could, retire from that point on and be happy with what I've done, because I've been lucky enough to be at Man United for 10 years. I've played in the first team. I've played with some of the best players to ever play the game. So anything after that would have been a bonus. Yeah, just little things in terms of when I left and went to certain clubs at certain times, and it maybe didn't work out for whatever reason, and a few injuries at bad times. But again, that's football, and you can't really sort of preempt that. So no.
We have a brilliant comment here from Phil, from Fred the Red MUFC News.
Yeah.
Comes in and say, Phil Mars was so underrated. He would have flourished if given more time on the pitch, but was competing with legends. Where are the legends now,
Yeah,
Phil? Yeah,
that's it. And I mean, I don't sort of look at that and think, you know, in a bad way that, you know, if maybe I'd have been at the club sort of 10 years after, and I'd have been in the same situation.
The timing.
I think, I probably think, I would have definitely got more chances, more opportunities, because the caliber of player wasn't the same, and the younger players would have been, you know, pushed and given that opportunity just purely based on the results of the first team, the performances of the players in the first team. Whereas, you know, when I was there, they was winning the league every year. They was in the Champions League, going deep. They was signing the best players from all around the world every other transfer window. You know, we're bringing players like Varane into the club and stuff like that. So, you know, as a young player, you're sort of buzzing to be involved and be around it and be able to watch and learn from all these great, amazing players. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, you know, the chances of me getting into this first team is you know, slim, next to none, because of how good they are. But every moment that I'm here, I'm gonna utilize that and learn and be able to take all these little bits of advice and, you know, watch and train and do everything, and go and watch on a Saturday and watch the players who play in your position, so that when I do finally leave, if it comes to that, I've, you know, got as much out of that experience, and I've got as much out of the time that I've got with all these amazing players to take away, and then, you know, use that in your own you know, in your own journey that you're going to go on in your next steps. Because as I say, when you leave, it's a massive shock to the system, because, you know, the whole package of being at Man United is unique, and as I say, when you go anywhere else, it's a step down, and it takes time to adapt to that, because, as I say, it's not just, you know, you go into a different club. The whole package of playing for Man United, the training ground, the facilities, the way you're looked after, the transport, the training ground, even the complex, everything is different, and being used to something so amazing and so good and so, you know, unique. It's very hard to sort of comprehend that, because obviously I went to Blackpool and they was in the Championship at the time, and I went from training at Carrington on, you know, bowling greens to training at Squires Gate in a portal cabin next to the earth. Balls swirling around, the training ground was crap, the gym was all like rusty, and you had to use to take your own training stuff home and wash your kit. And obviously that's not a problem, but obviously it's just hard to comprehend that, you know, drop down one league, and now all this is just like mind blowing, because, as I say, you've been used to the standards being so high, everything's done for you, your professionalism. You're sort of in that routine of coming in, knowing what's what, and then before you know it, you're like, what the hell's going on here? Like, I'm training and there's balls swirling around everywhere because you're training next to the airport. And it was just, it's difficult. And only if you've been in that sort of situation, it's sort of, some people might go, oh, well, you know, you just get on with it, which you do. But because it's such a shock to the system, and it's hard to sort of adapt so quickly, because and especially because I'd been there for 10 years, and obviously you know what the culture of the club is, and then you go to Blackpool and it's completely different. Everything's completely different. Like, the training's not the same, the training ground's not the same, the facilities aren't the same, the way that you're spoken to is not the same, the way that, you know, everything is completely different. So it's like alien. And obviously as a young kid, I was obviously 21, 22 at that time, it's hard to come to terms with everything so quickly and try and hit the ground running.
Yeah, I can believe that. Well, if it's any consolation, I gave Ian Olmonrod a kick a couple of years ago in Portugal. If I see him again this year, I'll kick him on your behalf. Don't you worry.
Yeah, no problem.
Another question from Trev for you again. He's asking about muscle memory. Is it a myth, or does it actually come into play in the professional game?
No, it's
a really good question. Yeah,
it's definitely a thing. I think it 100% is. I think maybe not as prevalent maybe in football in certain positions, depending on, you know, what kind of muscle memory you're talking about. But I think definitely for me, I can relate back to my time at United and things just becoming second nature because it's drilled into you so much. You're doing it every day in training. And then when you see that picture sort of, come to fruition on a football pitch in terms of like the mood. So for me, I always think as a striker, when the ball's building up, where am I in relation to the ball? Am I putting myself into a good position where if that ball gets played into a position where I can make a good run to get on the ball, am I in a position there where I can influence the game? And then it's all about opposites. So if I want the ball in the channel, I'm not just going to make that run straight into the channel. I'm going to move inside and then I'm going to spin into the channel to create that space. If I want the ball in behind, I'm not just going to spin in behind. I'm going to come short first. I'm going to get the eye contact with the centre mid or the fullback, and then I'm going to spin because that sucks the defender into the middle of the pitch and the space is in behind. So all these little pictures that you do every day in training is part of muscle memory and being able to sort of then apply it in a match day. So for me as a striker, the movement, the little movements and them little sort of subtle things would always be part of my training regime. And then, as I say, when it comes to a match day, it just hopefully then becomes more natural, second nature, that you don't have to think about it. You can just put yourself in a position where it's bang and then you get the ball. As I say, not all the time do you get the ball, but you're still making that run and you're still offering an option, and then you may be sucking other players out for other players to take that space.
Phil, just a quick question when it comes to being a striker, because you obviously know this. You played at a high level. When you see players like today, Højlund, you see the movement of Xerxes, Rashford when he plays as a striker. Do you see things that they obviously should improve? Because when I'm on this show with Stu, we always talk about Højlund's hold-up play and when he has the defender in his back, how he should be better to shield the ball and small details of the game. How do you see it, and what do you think they can do to improve? Are there any clear things that you see with your eyes when you watch the game that you obviously this should be fixed right away?
Yeah, I think, to be fair, with some of the strikers now that we've got, I think one of the biggest problems that we've got is, as we've touched on obviously before, because we've not really got that proper structure and that proper way of playing, I think it's difficult, and sometimes as a striker, you want to build up relationships with certain players on the pitch, and that only comes with time by playing week in, week out with them particular players. And as soon as that player gets in a position where they got on the ball, straight away, this is the movement that I'm going to do, and that ball's going to get delivered into that area. I think now, because the way that United have been over the last couple of seasons especially, the balls aren't getting put into the box as quickly as maybe the strikers need. The build-up plays being a little bit more sort of slow and not as direct and sort of as going forward with, real aggression and pace, which is what I used to love in terms of like the way United used to play, get the ball out wide, bang, get balls into the box, strikers, movement into the channels, creating space. I think now, because the way that the game's moved on and the build-up play is all sort of, wide inverted wingers, the movement from a centre forward as what I remember in terms of like an old-fashioned number 9 isn't as sort of prevalent anymore. I think what doesn't help as well is for the likes of Højlund and people like that is when you get, someone like Garnacho out wide. And I think back to the times when I obviously played and some of the players I used to play with, I would know 9 times out of 10 that ball's going out wide. The ball's going to get touched out of the feet and the ball's going to get delivered into the box. So I'm ready and I'm anticipating that straight away. Whereas I think now, some of the strikers that are playing currently are sort of guessing that they don't know if it's coming in. They don't know whether they're cutting back inside, whether they're going to chop back, whether they're coming playing off the midfielder, whether it's getting set back. So because these patterns haven't been, repetition and haven't been done over time with the same group of players, because that's a massive part of it as well. Building up relationships with players, because you get to know, And like when you think back to some of the strike pack, like York and Cole, them two was singing off the same hymn sheet. You knew one was each other, the little overs, spin. That kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. That's from training and working and, you know, building up that patterns of play, knowing that, you know, when that ball comes into him there, if I do want to leave it, I know he's going to be behind me and I can just spin. I don't have to every time, but that's an option for me. And
it's interesting you say that, Phil.
And I think at the moment it's really difficult because we're not getting enough time with players that are being able to build up patterns of play, being able to build up a relationship with a strike partner or a winger, fullback and a winger, two centre mids, two strikers.
They're not trying, are they? They're not training after.
No.
But it's funny enough because I agree with you about centre forwards, old-fashioned number 9s. When I was about 18, 19, we used to do sensory perception training. So there wouldn't be any ball work, but it'd be a centre half would be blindfolded, and he'd have to listen and anticipate just by the foot movements and touch, you know, from the fingertips as to where he would be. So we were always taught that kind of angle. So you can only turn so far, can't you? When if I'm tight on you, you can only turn so far. So we were taught to anticipate a maneuver based on touch from stomach to back, you know, so to speak. Or if I've got you at arm's length, which way you're going to go, so I can try and grab your shoulder or grab your, you know, your shirt here, that type of thing. We were always taught that. You don't get taught sensory perception football anymore because a lot of players don't back into you like they used to. You're quite right. Or we're trying to anticipate your little 2-minute burst, your little 2-second burst quickly in, bang. And we're trying to, how am I going to stop that? And sometimes, you know as well as I do, if it must have happened to you, player just does that, doesn't he? Just to do anything to try and stop you. It's all about scrubbing your speed. And I try and tell people this all the time. If I can scrub your speed anyway, shoulder to shoulder, something, because I'm not as quick as you, I've got something I can be tangible. So we used to do a lot of that. So and it would be done without the ball. So players turning and us trying to work out which way. So it just sharpened your mind a little bit. They don't do any of that anymore. Don't know what they're doing anymore, Monday coaches, Phil.
No, I agree. But as I say, them partnerships and them relationships was something that we used to work on all week in training, and then it just, you know, comes second nature when you come into the games. And that's the question, obviously, about the muscle memory. That is the muscle memory from obviously my perspective as a forward. My muscle memory when a ball's in a particular position. All right, I'm not always going to get the ball, but I'm always going to try and make a run that offers that player a run, that offers that player an option. Sorry,
you'd have been a nightmare to play against. You know, I can just imagine you looking, bang, quick elbow.
And that was my game. That was my complete game. I was always when the ball's getting built up, I'm walking, but I'm not walking. I'm walking to sort of make the centre half think that I'm not really paying attention. And then as soon as I see that ball building up, right now it's going out wide. Now I'm getting ready in my head that this is the time when I'm just going to go bang, and then before they know it, they're like, "Whoa, he's gone."
Because you've got to catch me asleep, haven't you? You've got to make sure I'm asleep. You've got to make sure I'm either looking at something else or you've got that route. What we were always told to do was, if you're walking, give it a space, but try and mimic your walk. But it's not always that easy.
No, it's
because while you're over there, the ball might be coming over here or coming into a segment that I'm supposed to occupy, and you're going, "See you, Stu."
It's a fine line, because sometimes, and what I used to like to do as well is, because I used to like to drop in as well and get on the ball and be a bit of a playmaker as well. Even though I had a lot of speed, I used to try and mix because then I used to think, oh, right, so next time he's probably going to drop 5 yards. And because I've just, you know, roasted him in the channel, he's then going to drop 5 yards naturally. So then now this time I'm going to maybe go as though I'm going long and then come and get it and turn and face him up. And then I've got 10 yards to drive into. And then obviously you're giving him different problems. So as a centre half, then you're going, is he going to go in the channel? Is he going to spin? Is he going to drop in? And it's a nightmare to play against. You want the centre.
I'll be honest with you, pal. I'd have tried to hold your shoulder as much as I possibly could. You know, so when you do start walking, I'd try and stop you. I'd try and bring you back.
And that's basically what happens. Like when you play in the youth team and the thingy, that type of thing doesn't really happen as much. But then I found it when, obviously, because I was doing quite well and I played in the reserves a little bit younger than maybe a few of the other lads because I was physically stronger. When you're playing against proper centre half, so like I remember playing against David Weir. We played at Altrincham. David Weir was playing for Everton, and I was playing up front. And I've gone to make a run in the channel, and before I even off the ball, before I even did it, he just grabbed me and threw me on the floor.
Yeah. I would try and do that because I'd be worried about your pace. I'd be worried about you in free air.
Yeah, and I think obviously if you can get away with that kind of thing, then obviously he doesn't want to be running the channel with sort of a 19-year-old. He was coming towards the end of his career, so he was probably like 34, 35, whatever he was, and he's thinking, no, I don't want to be running the channel with that young kid. So throw him away, type of thing. But then for me, that was like, right, okay, so I'm just going to do that again, and I'm going to keep doing it, and then hopefully the referee will book him, and then when he's on a booking, he's not going to want to do it again, and I'm going to try and drop in and face him up then. Take him
that would have been a nightmare for me. Did you use your head a lot? Sometimes when I was going again, if you were a smaller player to a centre half, you'd turn in and you kind of butt him slightly, just trying off balance him. Did you ever do that? Use your head and.
Yeah, do you mean like in terms of like when I was trying
to push me out of the way? Yeah, if I'm tight to quick back flick or top of the shoulder.
Like I used to always sort of like to feel the defender. So if sort of sometimes I'm watching the play build up, but I'm still trying to keep an eye on obviously where the defender is in relation to where I am in terms of the space because I know where my movement's going to take me. I used to sometimes try and use my arm to sort of like push off. As like a
use that as your starting point,
This is what we've been talking about Højlund. What we see that he can actually improve to get in touch with his defender, angle his body.
I hate that when that happens because somebody like you, if you're just doing that quickly, and it's really for anybody who doesn't know, you use this part of your arm because it's your strength, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you can get a grip of your kind of side bars or whatever you got there, and then suddenly push, it fucks a defender up all the time. I get that a lot still, and I know it's coming, and sometimes you just think, how's he done that, bastard? Can't get away from it. And the other one, some people when they come in, they dip, don't they? They dip down slightly to whoa, where is he? What's he got? Just one little movement, and you can, as long as you can take the ball on the turn. You'd have been a nightmare to play against. Just listening to you.
That's what you're trying to. So obviously, as a striker, you want to make the life for the defender as hard as you can. So as I say, your movement initially, I would always try and maybe spin him behind first to make him think, he's gonna stretch the pitch all the time. And then once you've done that maybe a couple of times, that's when then you might drop in, and then that gives him the problem of so he's not just going to keep spinning. He might drop in, and then they're sort of second guessing then what you're going to do. And then before you know it, because we used to have some really top players, so I would know, regardless of where I was on the pitch, if I made a run, 9 times out of 10, it might not always come, but if they wanted to, they could play that ball into the space. They could find me into the feet. They could drop a ball in so that I can get on the half turn and drive at the defender. So for the defender, it must have been really difficult because you're second guessing and you're not knowing what someone's going to do, especially someone who's got pace, because pace is like for an attacker. If you've got pace as a defender, that's the biggest sort of thing that you're probably thinking, right? I can't let him face me up here, or I can't let him get 10 yards into space because I'm dead.
You're making me sweaty. Do you know what I used to do? Because when you're backing in, you always have your legs open, don't you? So I always push my leg either onto your right toe, so I push it between your legs and onto your right toe, and just see what you're going to do. 9 out of 10 times, what happens with that is you both kind of like gravitate towards the floor, don't you? Because I'm stopping you going, you're wrestling me. The ref lets it go, which is great because we're not hurting you two, we're not necessarily fighting. But so the amount of times, though, I mean, you must have done it yourself. Bang on me fucking toe, you bastard! Stuck on my fucking toe. and he's away, and you're fucking trying to get hold of him. And next time, what happens? Centre half comes right through you, doesn't he?
Straight down the Achilles, straight down the back of your Achilles.
Yeah, well, we got a fell. Come on, I would never do that, pal. I try and me and Jarvis do our tactics boards, and we try and explain what it's like to actually, play in a game and try and understand what it's like. But being able to talk to you about, your tricks and what I used to do, my little tricks, and I'd be always grabbing your shirt here. Always grabbing your shirt here, and I'd make you, try and do something. My favourite one was if we fell down together for whatever reason, slide tackle or whatever, I'd stop you getting up by grabbing your shirt.
So you can't straight back.
Yeah,
it's all the little dark arts, the little dark arts.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and it's great to say when you're like, I remember playing in the reserves a lot of time. You're playing against all these like seasoned pros. And you're thinking like, wow, he's obviously like doing little things here, grabbing your shirt or, like giving you a little elbow in the back or, whatever. And you're thinking, but again, it's just trying to put you off your game and like off-putting and little tactics to just try and maybe give them a little bit of a upper hand. But it's great because, as I say, as a young player, you sort of get used to sort of some of these things and it makes you want to raise your game a little bit and try and do a little bit extra to try and prove that you deserve to be in and around it. And it was great. I loved it. As I say, I was lucky enough to sort of play up and play in the reserves for probably like 3 seasons out of the 4 that I was full time, and play up from Alan Smith and Saha and Solskjaer and Bellion and people like that. And as I say, when you're playing with fellas like that, it's brilliant because you're watching and the communication is massive as well, which is sort of an underwritten thing with obviously great partnerships as well. The communication, and it's not always verbal. It's not always, whatever. It's telepathic. It's like, I know that if, Saha's going short, I've got to go in long. I know if he's coming in there, I want to be stood directly behind him because I know he's good enough to recognise that he might do a little overs or flip one round the corner and then come and get the second ball, or that he's a third man run from a midfielder that he can drop it off and then I'm in a position where I can receive.
It's a forgotten art, isn't it? That the non-communication type, the non again from the centre half. If I've given you those 5 yards and I'm not seeing your eyes, I'm not seeing you do that because I've missed it. I don't see your head go. Then all of a sudden it's Stu, and
it's hard to explain as well. It's hard to sort of explain sometimes of how you sort of
intuitively.
It just happens. Like you just know where to be. You just know what the other person's expecting. You know where he wants the ball. You know what run he's going to make. And I think, it comes back to muscle memory. You're probably just seeing these patterns reoccurring over time in training. You know that that's the expectations, or that I should be in a position where if, for example, he does miscontrol the ball or it doesn't go quite to him and the pass is a bit off, I'm in a position where if it does go past him, I can still get on the ball. Because I'm putting myself in a position where your contingency plan is, if that doesn't go to plan, we've still got a chance of getting on the ball here, or I can still affect the game in a way because I'm in a position where I can, help a teammate out or give him an option.
But that's all eyes and common sense, isn't it? I always say, Phil, when I'm doing it, I do a bit of coaching. I'm obviously qualified like you, but I do a bit of coaching. I always say to the kids, look, kids, football's 10% feet. Oh, what are you on about? Yeah, I said, I promise you now, it's 10% feet. And they go, why? I said, because your brain is telling you what your feet are to do. And it's your brain, your eyes, your ears, your communication. That's what's telling you where to be, where to pass it. 2-yard pass, 10-yard pass. What have you spotted that nobody else has spotted on that pitch? And we do a very simple exercise, Phil, and it's and I always get them new teams to start off, and I put them on the byline. I say, right, run to me in a line, and of course they're like this, aren't they? And I say, stop, go back, run to me in a line. And about the 4th time they've got it, and they were looking at me quizzically, what are you doing? I said, well, you're listening, you're looking, you're communicating. you've got an awareness. You have to do all of that to run in a perfect line to get to me. Those are the key attributes of football. They are the absolute key attributes. And it's a very simple task, isn't it, Phil? It's
It's
nothing.
It's
nothing. But my God, does it teach you a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And this is why I love talking about it. I love talking about it. I love playing it. And this is why I can't quit. This is why I'm in a wheelchair when I'm 70, because I just can't quit. And talking to you now about the dark art is, to me, it's ace, because everything we talk about, and I can visualize what you're doing on there, but you'd be a nightmare to play against. You really, really would.
Yeah.
But that's good, because it challenges you, doesn't it? It makes you, And as you're up against Marshy, or up against Stu, fucking hell, Stu, I know Stu's going to fucking headbutt me today at some point, or he's going to come in and try and stop me. How can I get the better of him? That's what you don't get.
I used to love the challenge as well, of sort of, because some weeks you'd come up against really good defenders, and obviously your movement would be counteracted by either they're really quick and, they might be, good at reading the game. So you'd have to come up with a different solution then, right? How can I impact the game if I can't run him because he's rapid, if he's strong and I can't bounce off him and he's getting a toe in, what can I do differently, and what sort of other attributes in my game can I do to upset him or do something different that he's maybe not as good at? So that's then when, obviously, he might be rapid, but then is he going to come out and kind of maybe play 1-2 around him, or kind of maybe do a little bit of something different to create that space where he's going to come out of his comfort zone, and then I can hurt him by doing something differently. And that's all about, as a player, you've got to recognise them situations. I've come up against lads where sometimes I've gone, do you know what? I didn't quite get on top of that today, but I know for next time, if I play against that particular player, or I know against that team, right, I need to be better at that, or I need to maybe change my game a little bit, because sometimes in a game, what it's like, sometimes you get a little bit swept away in the game and you don't have to sort of be able to digest the full situation, and then you come away from it and go, really, I didn't really get the better of him today, but he had a great game. He was a good player. He was really fast and strong. So now when I look back at the highlights, or when I think about what I did well in that game, what can I do better, that's when then you've got to look at your own game, or look at the way, how as a team or partnership or as a pair can we do something better next time, and then you work on that again in training, and then that's where you get all these different strings to your bow, so that when you do come up against a particular defender that's good at something, all right, I've played against someone like that before, I'll just do this, or that's an option now. If he wants to just keep getting tight to me and trying to finger, I'll just roll him, or I'll just keep sending him in behind, and then he'll get bored of chasing me, and then I'll get that 5 yards when I can drop off.
Yeah. You are touching on a vital element of the game, and sometimes as a player you feel that the game just passes by, and you don't get involved at all. And when you go into war, to say it like that, when you play a game, you have to take command of your own destiny in a way, and take the game by the scruff of it.
And that's where it's dangerous, Jarvis. It's dangerous for a defender, Jarvis, because if Phil's been out of the game, I'm thinking, quite an easiest game here. Or am I looking at what he's doing? Am I looking at, is he taking the ball on his right foot 9 out of 10 times? But hold on, he's taking it twice on his left here. So, and you're always looking for body shape all the time. But the good strikes, like Phil said, he'll just stick his head down for, I don't know, 30 seconds or whatever, and you look completely disinterested, and suddenly, bang.
Yeah.
And that flows into life. That's
the best. The best strikers, like you see them, they look like they're not interested in the game, and then bang, out of nowhere.
That's it. Yeah.
As a defender, it must be a nightmare to sort of think you've got someone, and then out of nowhere they've that little bit of movement and it's a goal, or they've got
a fake injury. I'd fake injury. I'd go down. Oh, the hamstring. The hammy's gone. I'd fake injury because I'm not catching it. Oh God! And then as you run past me, grinning. Oh, keep going.
Oh, that was the best bit. Like when you've scored and they've been like ribbing your game, or they've been thingy, and you've not really done much, but then you've scored the winner, and you're walking back, and you just give them a little smile, and
twisting the knife for extra time.
I tell you what, at the end of the game, when you've had a real battle, you can't wait, to hug in it. A proper fucking top draw.
I used to love having, really good tussles with some of the centre halves I used to play against. At the end of the game, you think, wow, like brilliant game today. Like he's, had a few good tackles and we've, had great little duel throughout the game. But after the game, it's all, even regardless of if there's been a bit of, tension or a bit of bad tackles or, whatever needle. At the end of the game, it's, brilliant, well played, and that's it. And you look forward to the next battle or the next game. That's what
you have respect and mutual respect for great athletes. That's just the way it is.
That rivalry is what it's all about. Yeah. Can you win your individual battle? When you walk out onto the pitch, you can only affect yourself. You can't affect what the rest of your team do. I want to go on the pitch. I want to win my individual battle every week. I'm not going to win my individual battle every week, but I'm going to try my best to win my individual battle every week. If I can't win my individual battle, I'm still going to work my socks off and I'm still going to try and maybe give someone else more of a chance of winning their individual battle by making movement, by giving them an option, giving them more chance to create space or get on the end of things because I'm doing my part as much as I can. And that's it. Then you can walk off the pitch and go, do you know what? The centre half was brilliant today. Couldn't get the better of him. But, next time I play him, I know what he's good at and what he didn't like when I did the odd few things that I did well. And then you take that on and that's how you improve as a player because you've got to cater for all the different types of players that you can come up against. It's not going to be obviously you're playing for United. Sometimes you might play against a weaker team and you think, oh, it's easy this and, I'm just getting him for fun and he can't get near me and I'm running him in behind and he doesn't know what he's doing. And that's great. You make the most of them days and you try and score as many goals and get your confidence up. But then, somewhere along the line, you're going to come up against the centre half who's really solid, really quick, reads the game well. So that's when then you've got to, I can't just, rely on, all this like basic stuff that I can do now. I've got to really step up and, give myself or give.
Haven't you?
In more of a problem. I've got to be proactive now. I can't just if I've got to be proactive. All right, so he's going to do that. Is he right? Oh, I've got to do this. If he's going to come and step in, all right. Well, I'm going to maybe threaten him behind a bit more because he wants to try and come and win the ball when it's getting played into my feet. And you've got to sort of have all these different scenarios in your head whilst you're playing, which is the hardest thing because as the game's going, you're trying to compute in your head. All right, so he did that last time. So now when it comes into feet, if he wants to get to touch tight, I'm going to get my body, I'm going to roll him. If he wants to
exactly. Exactly. I'm going to get in, I'm going to roll. My issue, Phil, was if I didn't get the first header in, oh, fuck, I'd panic.
Yeah.
5 or 6 minutes, I'd be panicking. I'd have to.
Well, that's really, the centre half. You want that to settle you in, don't you? You want that.
If you lose that first battle, for a striker, it's great, isn't it? Even if it's a little poncy flick on.
Yeah.
If I've missed it, and
that's like a little mini battle, isn't it? Before
the start, isn't it? Yeah, and then But I'm a chatty. I chat as well. I'm always in.
You get all sorts. You get like ones that are chatting to you throughout the game, all the game. Not saying anything, but are always like nudging and prodding, and you get some that are sort of like they might not say anything for a while, and then they'll just come in with like a random comment about something that's completely, off topic, and you're a bit like, what the hell's he going on about? But these are all like tactics that trying to sort of put you off your game or just give them an edge.
My favourite. I'll start chatting at you, and I'll get someone. I'll go, fucking ref, have you seen this? That's my. Have a fucking word here, will you?
Yeah.
And I go, come on, ref, and I do that. I'm backwards and forth, backwards and forth, backwards and forth. I'm just trying to get you off your game somehow. It doesn't matter how I do it. I'm just trying to get you off your game. What a great conversation that is. We are way behind, way behind now. I'm kind of thinking that hopefully the VAR room would have found that. Really
it's great. It's great to talk about stuff like that because, as I say, when you think, obviously, the game has changed a lot now, and you can't get away with nowhere near as much as what you used to be able to because of VAR and whatnot. But them was like the days where that's like, to me, that's proper football. Do you know what I mean? That's like being on a pitch, trying to get the better of your man and being able to do like little. We're not talking about like volley on and like elbowing someone in the face and it's not that. It's just little thing, and that's great because you as a striker as well, you get your opportunities as well to maybe get little digs in and little things where you can get the upper hand on a centre half. And as I say, it's doing and throwing throughout the 90 minutes. And as I say, at the end of the game, no matter what, you always shake hands and you say played. And there's no better feeling than walking off a pitch, playing a good game of football, regardless of the score. Obviously, you want to win, you want to play well, you want to score as a striker, but that's not going to happen every single week. But being able to just go and work your socks off and have a great game of football, and a lot of the time it's in good humour as well. Like I've played against loads of players, loads of teams where it'll be like he might get the better of you, and you go, done me there, whatever, and well done, and then the next minute you might roll him and then knock one in the top corner, and they're like, "You fucking twat, you done me."
Yeah, that's what I would say.
That's what it's like, all, you know what I mean? And it's brilliant. The banter that you have, like between playing and obviously in the dressing room and all that, it's priceless. Like honestly, they're the best days of your life. Like being involved in them kind of situations and in dressing rooms, and especially when you playing at a really top level and you're playing at great stadiums and you're playing with like top players, and you can't beat it. Honestly, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's great, really is great talk to a real, like me and Jarvis, we love proper football banter, real fucking talk about it. I popped a shot in a couple of weeks ago, hit the post. I claimed I put some backspin on it. I didn't. That's what I claimed. I didn't. I got a nice little ping on it, but it dropped just short of the keeper's hand and it popped over his hand.
Oh, bobbled over.
Yeah, and our striker put it in. He goes, "You fuck!" I said, "It's backspin." I said backspin on it, and it popped over his hand. He was
like
crying
when he went for pick that ball up and it just bobbled over.
Yeah, I said, you know it is, Keeps. I think I called him Keeps. He's he had a good game actually, to be fair, but you got to have a bit of a good.
Yeah. Did I tell you the other week? I played for United Legends the other.
I saw it on Twitter. Yeah, I saw it on Twitter.
So, I went down we played in Southampton, Havington Waterlooville. So Matt Letizia played. He played for United in this charity game. But it was a brilliant day. Like we went down obviously the day before, stayed over, and then played the game on the Sunday. But it was brilliant. Like I'm lucky, like obviously to be involved in that now, and obviously
brilliant.
I'll be able to play in a few more of the games. But it was a brilliant day. We raised a lot of money for it was a international deaf kids charity. But there was some great like players who played in it. There was Letizia played, Michael Gray. Some of these aren't United players, but like just good professionals who's obviously played at the top level. Luke Chadwick played. Chadders played. Lee Trundle played.
Oh, what a player! What a left foot!
Great player still. So there was some great lads. Like as I say, lucky to be involved, and hopefully I'll be involved in a few more.
Let us know. Keep us looped in.
Yeah, if you want to come and watch one, maybe, because there's quite a lot of the down south, or like a little bit more towards like the Midlands way, because he did say obviously there's a couple that are up north, but majority of them are for like down south. So I'll probably
keep us looped in.
Heads up, because there's some big, like in some of the games, like Scholes has played in a couple, and Robson's played in a couple, Yapstam's played in a couple. So you do get some big hitters coming down every now and again. So it's really good.
Honestly,
and it's great crap. The lads are all great. It's like who else is there who plays? Keith Gillespie, he plays. There's like,
is he sober yet?
Russell Beardsmore, Russell Beardsmore, Ben Farnley, Chris Casper, Nick Culkin. These are all like lads who Danny Simpson, Chris Eagles, Danny Webber. There's loads that they're all
Chris Eagles.
Yeah.
Don't tell me his Eagles still got that headband.
He's still got quite long hair, but the headbands wasn't. I've not seen him with the headband on.
Foster tells a good story about him, doesn't he, in South Africa when he missed a pen, and Fergie went, "You little shit with your fucking long hair and your headband."
Yeah. He came down in the lift in one of the pre-season tours. He came down in one. We'd been told to like meet in the lobby because he was going for a walk. Where like obviously shorts and the right attire, which meant obviously a pair of trainers, and he came down in like shorts, a vest, and some flip flops. the lift doors open. Fergie just gave him the look, and he didn't even come out of the lift. The lift doors just shut again. He just went straight there, like get some.
Excellent. What an absolute legend. Jarvis, I'm gonna have to get going shortly, so we've got a couple more questions, I think. Do you wanna take over?
Yeah, well, we've been doing almost 3 hours. I think we are our viewers are
perhaps we should close. Perhaps we should close up. Yeah.
Let's just close the show.
Phil, can we get you back on
any questions left? Or
No, I've lost count, Jarvis. So
we have a lot of brilliant questions, but sorry guys.
If we've missed, apologies, but I hope you've enjoyed a real insight from Phil into striker play, because you don't just get that on any other channel. I'm sorry, you don't. That's proper. And I hope you like my comedy value with the defender play. Our little
definitely make to and fro-ing. It's what it's all about. It's great.
Absolutely. So Jarvis, let me push you back to close us out.
Yes.
So if we've missed any questions, we really apologise. But I must admit, I lost track with questions. So I do apologise. But we'll get Phil. You can come on. You've got an open book, really. Whenever you want to come on, you're more than welcome, pal.
Yeah, no problem. I'll come back on, definitely.
Great.
It's been a brilliant show. Trebleweight, outstanding show. Great work, Jarvis and Phil. Where did
Trev, we love Trev. He comes on and he creates some great questions. Spends most of the night rinsing me and Jarvis occasionally. So he's a great bloke.
Yeah. Well, it's been a brilliant show. Great insight. Thank you, Phil, for coming on. Stu and all of you guys watching. You know, we have been doing almost 3 hours. I think it's a new record. 2 hours 57 minutes now. And Stephanie, Fred the Red, Trevor, Jack Reacher. Who else do we have here? It's Timmy,
Jamie Wayne's been in. Yeah, Yarla.
And the brilliant membership gift from Roshmano. Roshmano, I actually saw that Roshmano put out some tweets that we are actually leave on a high note. The contract of Ahmad is most likely going through. So at least we have pinned down one of our best players for the future, and that's a good sign. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. We will be here next Monday, 9 p.m. Phil, whenever you want to come back, feel free. Send me a text and
open invite
all the time. So it will be interesting. A big week ahead. Manchester City this weekend. Well, we have the Europa League, Victoria Filson, and it will be interesting. Let's hope we can get back to our winning ways and start to progress. So, guys, big up. Thank you.
Time to play City at the moment, is there? If there's a time to play them, it's probably now.
Yeah. No, I know. But we've got to sort ourselves out, haven't we? Crikey.
Yeah. You want to end with some score predictions for the City games?
No.
Stu?
I'll say
2-1. We scrape it 2-1.
I'll say draw 1-1.
1-1. Okay. I'll go with
keep Harlan quiet, haven't we? If we can keep him quiet, we'll be all right.
Yeah, I think we're nailed on for both teams at the moment.
Yeah, they're nailed on.
Season at the same rate. So.
But he's got De Bruyne back now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he looked good the other day, to be fair. But
he did. Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but he did.
No, yeah, he did. But Yeah, I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1. Yeah. Well, I will go for the draw too. So let's say 2-2 then.
I'll go 2-1. I'm going 2-1.
Okay.
Good.
Leave on a high note.
Absolutely.
So thank you everybody for watching. It's been a brilliant show, and we will be back next Monday 9 p.m. Ta-da, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for stopping by and watching MUFC Realist TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on the socials.